All right, people. All right. Whew. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafa. Let me bring this closer to me. Let me bring you all a little closer. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafa. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا Juan Ying Leute, bienvenidos a todos, Bacher Ragale, Khushamadid, and as always, people, Swagatam, Swagatam. All right, so what is going down? You know, today we almost got sabotaged. Almost. You know, this is a metaphor for life, people. You never know what's gonna happen where. So all of a sudden, I'm trying to fire this up, and Streamlabs today repeated error after error after error. It doesn't even open up. So anyway, got rid of the thing, downloaded it again, got it up. But lillahi alhamd. Remember, mi gente, failing is not an option. Allah, Allah, Allah. So what have we got in store tonight? What is we going to be discussing? You know, I thought I had a Mufti meetup special as well. It was my my Janamdin, my birthday. So I thought, you know, as a treat, why not to several different beloveds that today we get a bunch of them and my treat to them al-yawm yawm al-maghsala. Those of you that remember the hadith al-yawm yawm about marhama madhbaha, malhama and marhama. So in Arabic, you know, they say, people said, please, can you also share some more Arabic as well? Of course, please, no problem. You know, of course, brother. We'll share the Arabiya as well. So they say, sabagh is like when you're kind of like buttering someone up. Tasbighuhu, you know, it's like you're kind of coating. And masbagha, but then you have, so al-yawm, it's not yawm al-masbagha, it's yawm al-maghsala. We're gonna dulai, ragra. Today is the ragra, people. So let's bring on a few of our beloveds that we'll take a look at today a little later on. But just as to let you know what's in store, un momento, mi gente. Right, so who I'm thinking of today is, of course, our beloved Shadi Mubarak Al-Masri. Allah, Allah, Allah. Jo lambi chor rahe hain. He's doing proper blags, which the term for it, the terminology, the mustalah people is gup. Gup is when somebody's blagging on another level. So you know, like you've seen that meme where it's got that mulvi and it says the crush saying mujhe lambi chhodne wale pasand hai. I like people who really blag a lot. So the mulvi saying, you know, mere halqa tafsir mein bade jinnat aaya karte the. He's saying that many jinn used to attend my tafsir dars. And then he says, you know, many of them I got married. Like I married them off to each other. So anyway, we're going to be looking at Shadi Mubarak. Shadi Mubarak. Well, it's got to be. What? Where's... यार ये हो का रहा है कैसे सो कैसे So we'll take a little look at Shadi Mubarak and his monkey business on misleading people, misquoting, brother, no misquoting, brother. So also, what has Danny Boy been up to? We got to take a look at Danny Boy. Somebody, I don't know, it's not private, but Danny Boy has a Telegram group. And some messages have reached me. Worth sharing, people, worth sharing. Other than that, what did I say I will be looking at? Ibn Rushd. I've been asked by some people, can I speak on Ibn Rushd, the great Maliki legend? So I said, yes, of course. Claro que sí. Claro. So we'll speak a little bit about, yep, that seems, these are the key topics. Yep. Just taking, and of course, Miss Patroncitos, I'll be taking your questions as well. Much love to my patrons out there, and all of you guys as well. Mwah, Gio, and your questions. You know, Facebook for some days has been kind of, it doesn't, I don't know what Streamlabs is doing. What it used to do is it would run the Facebook comments down the side so I could read them as the YouTube comments run down the side. But for some reason, it doesn't seem to do that anymore. And I don't know. ¿Qué es eso? You know, like if I bring it up now and refresh it, it doesn't bring any chats. So I have to have Facebook open as a tab. But do keep sharing your questions. I will be checking time to time. Other than that, what is going down? What is going down, people? Classical Arabiya, people. Share some classical Arabic. I'll share a classical Arabic poem. Yeah, what, you know, this is in many ways symbolic of, you know, people. You know, bolu to kehte hain bolta hai. You know, this is the problem. If I speak, people say, yeah, he's going on. So this poet, classical poet, when describing how, obviously about the beloved, he says this is how the prophetic attributes are distributed between us. Yeah, he says laha, laha, Allah, her. Yeah. He says laha hukmu luqmanin wa suratu Yusuf. Allah. Wa naghmatu Dawoodin wa iffatu Maryam. Look at the attributes going that way. So this is sometimes the beloved. This is the kind of division. The judgment of Luqman. Allah. You know. The beauty of Yusuf. The serene tone of Dawood. The chastity or modesty of Maryam. Allah. Cha, what about me? He says, Wali huznu Ya'qubin wa wahshatu Yunasin wa alamu Ayyubin wa hasratu Adam. He says, for me, I get the sorrow of Jacob. I get the loneliness or the dark, the dark tribulations of Jonah, of Yunus, the pain and suffering of Ayub, Job, and I get the kind of remorse of Adam. This is sometimes the beloved. So when people say, look at Mufti, Allah, this is all, it kind of applies. But it's a beautiful poem. And it has the very famous line in it as well, that وَلَوْ قَبْلَ مَبْكَاهَا بَكَيْتُ صَبَابَةً لَقَدْ كُنْتُ شَفِيتُ مِنَ التَّنَدُّمِ. That if only I had cried before she had cried. Allah. That, you know, it would have, dealt with these anxieties and issues. If only before. before. لكن بكت قبلي فهيج لي البكاء بكاها فقلت الفضل للمتقدم. Allah, people, Allah. She cried before me, and her crying made me cry. So I had to admit that really, first position always goes to the first. But it's an epic poem, people, epic poem. Right, so what is going on? Do I have a brief Urdu poem always? To start it off, well, where's my picture gone?
तो हाथ पकड़ ले अब भी तेरा हो सकता हूँ मैं भीड़ बहुत है इस मेले में खो सकता हूँ मैं पीछे छूटे साथी मुझको याद आते हैं वरना इस दौड़ में सबसे आगे हो सकता हूँ मैं और एक मासूम सा बच्चा मुझ में अब तक जिंदा है छोटी छोटी बातों पर भी रो सकता हूँ
Hi. I don't know what happened to my video capture there. Must have been when I re-downloaded the whole thing. So what is going on? Let me first of all, ¿Cómo está mi gente? What is going on, people? Let's take a look. Let me take a look. Turkish food is good. Random. Chalo. Yeah, we say, Turkish food is good. Okay, so what else is going on? Oh, you're doing it with the super chats. You're doing it. Much love. Beloved has said, Mufti, I asked you about reincarnation once, and you said you'd bring someone on Mindtrap to discuss it. Any updates? I think I already did in another life. Well, I gotta find the right person who's prepared to discuss such a topic with me. And it's a difficult one, I think, especially for Muslims. So if you know any people that are interested and happy to discuss, definitely send them my way. Mufti Saab, have you seen the Shia response to Gangu Teli? I'm not sure. I saw one which somebody was responding about, should I debate, not me, but them, should they debate Farid? And there was some discussion about that. I kind of briefly went through, just kind of skipped through some of it. I don't know if that is it or if there's something else. Noman Ali Khan and his Arabic class. Allah. Is he doing it? Ayo, Nak. Nak, huh? Doing it, people. Unscripted and unrestricted. Hi. Story of my life, people. Stream is lagging. Oh, is the stream lagging? Is the stream okay? Let me check. Is it? Let me just get a quick. Is it all right for you guys? The stream. Let me check on Facebook and YouTube. Send a quick confirmation, peoples. Mi gente. Where's Facebook? All right, you're doing it, Ayub. You're doing it. Right. Fushi Ashar. All right. You guys are doing it. Is the streams coming through all right? There's no issue, is there, with the sound or the video? Rami, shukran for confirming. Yep, it's all good. Shukran, guys. See, the YouTube guys are on it. Oh, you look handsome as always in the stream of the. Wow, you teasing me, huh? you haramis. So, where is a bit? What's going on here? There you go. So, what is going on, mi gente? What's preoccupying the precious thoughts of mi gente? This is on the news.
Able to send out food for those who receive free school meals when schools are in.
This
and I'm really
person
glad that we're able to do that when schools
if
are
you're
out.
If you're that glad, can I just ask you a difficult question? Why did you vote against it?
Well, I'm really glad we were able to put it into place.
Yeah, but if you're that glad about being able to put it into place, again, Why did you, as Health Secretary, vote against this?
Well, because the reason that I'm glad now is because we've been able to sort that out.
Well, the reason you're glad now is that you got shamed.
Thanks to you.
Let's be honest, you got shamed into it by a football player, a young football player with a conscience, who managed to prick the conscience of you and the government. Do you regret now, given how glad you are that it's now happening, do you regret voting against it?
Well, of course, I'm pleased that we're making sure that.
That wasn't the question. I just asked if you regretted. But hang on, it's a very important question because
what's so difficult about these people? Just saying, just admitting you were wrong.
My question for you is, given how glad you now are that it's happening, do you regret
little
voting
children
against it? It's a yes
having
or no.
food in the UK?
Well, as I say, I'm really glad that it's happening
But do you
now.
regret it? Do you regret voting against it?
He voted against it, by the way.
I'll put it this way. In the first lockdown, we took this action. And now, as you say, we're in
Health
a second
Secretary, you only had to say yes or no, whether you regret it. You either regret it or you don't.
Well, I'm really glad that the situation's been resolved.
So you regret voting against it?
I'm really glad it's been resolved. We've sorted it out.
Kind of sounds like he's on trial.
I'm going to use my own words to describe my own feelings on this.
So you won't answer the question?
Well, it's that I'm answering the question.
Well, Your Honour.
And I'm really glad that we've sorted it.
Well, let's just hope going forward we don't rely. Let's just hope we don't have to rely, as we have to again this week, on Marcus Rashford to once again expose the iniquity of this system, because these kids are in lockdown, they're suffering, they're hungry, and they need support, and they need proper support from you as Health Secretary and the government. Thank you for joining us.
People, god damn, the unconscionable neglect of this government. One does not know whether to laugh or cry, but it is what it is. There you go, mi gente, damas y caballeros, Hancock. That's what is, the term ismun ala musamma. You couldn't have found a more perfect name for him, Hancock. There's like a prediction in that name. So what is going on, people? What awesome. Right, so yeah, good old politics everywhere. Mufti, have you been what's going on? Why are the English so bad at handling interviews? I don't think the English are. I think the English can be actually very good, some politicians, or even just general spokespeople. I think people like Hancock and Boris and, okay, I don't know about Hancock. He probably is massively incompetent. Boris, I think that he may have a clumsy element to his personality, but I think he's actually very intelligent. And I think he plays into that clumsiness to have his role more forgiving in the eyes of people. Because they kind of just think, oh, he's a twat, oh, he's stupid, he's clumsy. Whereas, come on, man, all that, just being from who he is, right from, from a genetic disposition, from his great grandfather coming down, elite people playing, key strategic roles in society, to a affluent, elitist private education. Come on, these people ain't dumb. I don't buy that they're dumb. I think it is intentional, whatever it is, and there is a point of they don't know as well sometimes, like, what is the best way to conquer, let's say, COVID-19. Now, fair enough, the whole world didn't know, so I'm not saying that they had the answer, but I don't think that this thing of, sorry, this happened, that happened, I think they would have known and just either not cared, or they may have allowed things. God knows how many people have benefited from this Plandemic. Seriously, I wonder how many people have benefited, and by people, not just the plebs on the ground. They ain't benefited jack. I'm talking about the upper, rather the elite echelons of society, the 1%ers. Right. So seriously, they've made millions and I mean, their wealth has significantly grown during the pandemic. So that's a question. Interessante. So yeah, let's move on. Mufti wasting our time. Ayo, did he just say Mufti wasting our time? Acha, 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 acha. Abe Saleh. Come on my show and you say So what's this? Acha. Khalid Al Qubaisi, you're doing it, Khalid. Much love for the super chat. Right, what are some of the questions and what's going on? Do a Mindtrap with Muhammad Hijab. Yeah, I would be, I'd love to. Why not? Think it'd be good, but I think Muhammad Hijab wouldn't. I don't know if he'd be keen on doing things like that. Because just if you just think about it, you see, if he probably, because of the backing he has and what he presents himself as a very as an intellectual of that kind of whole da'wah scene, if he was to speak with me, he could, if he just had a casual conversation, like a friendly one, he would get, they would kind of like just swallow him up. They would be like, "What the hell was that? You're speaking to a deviant. You're doing this. You're giving a deviant an opportunity. Blah 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 blah." So they wouldn't allow him. Like, look how Fareed tried to bully him. Yeah, when he had that trans hijabi on, and oh my God, why'd you give a it's not even Fareed's show. It's like, if I've got a show, what the hell has he got to do with someone in another continent? What I choose to do, who I choose to, put on it, what's it got to do with them? So yet, they were bullying him about it. And and if he tries to put me in my place, इसमें भी risk है. Risk तो इसमें भी है. This one, it might be the gamble, because you never know. In our last encounter, this not easy. This one not easy. So it might be big problem. So and if anyhow he ends up looking, he comes off a bit shortchanged, that would kind of destroy or ruin or damage, at least damage his reputation. So I think it's a risk that, for him, it's probably not worth taking. He's thinking, why even risk it? So, yeah. Right, so what is going on, people? Sheikh Imran Hosein. Who's... Sheikh Imran? Oh, Sheikh Imran Hosein. Achacha, you spelt it different. Yeah, I mean, that would be interesting. Yeah, why not? Why not? Let's get Sheikh Imran Hosein on, if we can. Do bold women have to wear hijab? Well, fortune does favor the bold. Women don't, unless it's through an illness. I was about to say, why would a woman be bold? But obviously, unless it's due to certain illnesses or conditions. But I wonder, is hair loss an issue for women? I mean, I know women do lose hair as well, but I wonder if it's a tiny issue, or is it actually a substantial issue? Obviously, hair loss for men is huge. And the irony is that worrying is actually a contributing factor. This is where the game is rigged against you. So you lose some hair and then you start worrying, which contributes to losing more hair. Whoever rigged this game, tawa. So, but I wonder how it is with, that's an interesting thought, I guess. Chalo, Google. So, right, so what is going on? Mufti, what do you think of the Muslim community, both Sunni and Shia, in Birmingham? In Birmingham, people, Brumtown, I don't know what it. I think it's great. I mean, it's good. I don't have any. Right, so there's a distinction in saying Muslim and between socio-cultural factors, because they're not, they're not interdependent necessarily. So, the Muslim scene, I think, pretty much everywhere is similar. It's suffering, it's destitute, it's something which is it's tragic. It's a Dev Das movie in slow motion. That's what it is, a car crash in slow motion. So you've got, it doesn't, because Muslims really, come on, Islam. I wasn't watching, but I saw on YouTube that he gave a suggestion. Obviously, I don't really watch these preachers and stuff like that, but it was something about why are people, why are the youth not listening to Islam or something like this, to the scholars? Why are they not listening to the scholars? And I just looked at it and I thought, look, I don't know what the hell whoever this person, this wa'id preacher is, whatever he's going to say. But the truth is, because you guys are irrelevant, okay? You are outdated and you're just not, apart from just trying to make people feel guilty and giving yourself a a self-esteem boost for feeling holier than thou and better than the rest. Right, because it is as well. Look, when people never, in discourse analysis, you study these things about power positions. They never underestimate a power position. That the power to even tell someone off. It is, there's psychology involved. If you psychologize, if we psychologize these scenarios, we will see that there is this kind of like people are kind of getting off on this kind of vibe of holier than thou, feeling good about alhamdulillah, at least my life is, you see, this is what it is. So in essence, but okay, put that aside. It's about the disconnect is so polarized between the mulvis, the mullahs, and the regular people. So that's why they're not listening. And you're too busy talking about an aspect of, a representational feature of Islamic fiqh, which has no meaning today. No semblance of any kind of connectivity is there. Like, so let's say, you want to teach them stuff, you're going on about, it doesn't mean anything to these people. Why would they? It's become so dry. Unless somebody just stumbles upon them who happens to already be interested, then that's, then that's fair enough. That's somebody who's come to them. In fact, speaking of that, well, peoples. So I'd come across, actually,
laughing and joking.
Right, I'd come across. Oh, actually, let's begin with why not. Speaking of these kind of preachers.
Laugh.
अबे यार क्या हो रहा है
Laughing and joking too much and becoming excessive in that is an indication that a person lacks high aspiration. And the question here is how is that possible? What is the relationship with joking and high aspiration? High aspiration is a person who's focusing on what is serious and what is important in life. The important things in life are serious. They're not things that are jokes. They require sweat and blood. If you want to lose weight, it's not a joking matter. When you go to the gym and you need to work out, it's pain, it's sweat. It's if you want to memorize the Quran, it requires reducing on your sleeping, spending time alone with yourself, revising, repetition, all of that. Joking too much takes away from your seriousness in things that you need to achieve. Many people, their personality of laughing too much excessively and joking too much excessively, it does
Oh, bloody hell, where did we go? It does generally lead to... No, actually, we need to get the rest of that. Right. Right, because I wanted you guys to catch the last part of what he said. There's
laughing and joking too much and becoming excessive in that is an indication that a person lacks high aspiration. And the question here is how is that possible? What is the relationship with joking and high aspiration? High aspiration is a person who's focusing on what is serious and what is important in life. The important things in life are serious.
So these
They're not
people
things that are jokes. They
is
require
a serious
sweat and
discussion,
blood.
as
If
you
you want
can
to lose
see.
weight, it's not a joking matter. When you go to the gym and you need to work
not a
out,
joking
it's
matter,
pain,
people.
it's sweat.
Pain.
If you want to memorize the Quran, it requires reducing on your sleeping, spending time alone with yourself, revising, repetition, all of that. Joking too much takes away from your seriousness in things that you need to achieve. Many people, their personality of laughing too much excessively and joking too much excessively, it does, generally speaking, go into other things in their lives. The way they are to their children, the way they're with their partner. You tend to find their life is not in order, mainly because they're not a serious person. They take everything as a joke.
Sorry. We're going to come to the other one in a moment. People, this is the kind of stuff you get for going to these kind of for attending these Jummah khutbahs. That's what you're going to get. You're going to get somebody there like that saying, look, joking and laughing is if people who generally joke and laugh, if you look at their lives, they're pretty miserable. Mufti, stop being miserable. Yaar. Stop being miserable, yaar. Huh? Honestly, where do they get this stuff from? That is the very definition of of happiness and joy, laughter. This is what you call, puddu banana. Like you're selling misery in the name of happiness and trying to deprive them of joy and laughter by saying joy and laughter is misery. What's that? Khird ka naam junun ka khird rakh diya. What's that? Of Allama Iqbal. He says, they've renamed insanity sanity and switched them around. And he says, Jo chahe tera husne karishma saaz kare. Whoever wants expresses himself however he wants. This is they're selling you misery by saying that's true happiness. You should be serious, blood, sweat. And people who are laughing, laughter, toba, God forbid, is a sign of misery. If you see those people in their real lives, they like, it pours into their family. I mean, for God's sake, I'm sure your family and your children, like you said, would appreciate you laughing more with them. So this is the problem, people. This is why people are disconnected. And if they do pick up any knowledge in the masjid, somebody sent me this. Those of you that can read it, let me see if If any one of the above, this is what breaks the fast, people. Two conditions is not met. The fast will not be invalidated, indeed. As such, even if a substance was to reach the stomach, or brain, rather, God forbid it's knowledge, but it did not enter through a direct, normal channel, such as the mouth, nose, or ears. Okay, I don't know who shoves things into their ears to reach their brain, but chalo, aisa bhi hota hoga, or rear hole. Then the fast is broken, people. The fast is broken. So this is the kind of stuff that they learn, you see, that a direct channel. There's one of the one of the bichara, he might attend one of those classes and he's in a really official senior, a government kind of, maybe a Cobra meeting of the top elite of the country. And they go, right, I need a direct channel. He goes, huh? Okay. They go, huh? Yeah. Chaos is. What are you doing? What is this? Acha, direct channel. Acha. I thought. Sorry. My fiqh. I've been studying. I've been serious. I've been seriously with sweat and blood. Tawbah. I've been studying, taking things more importantly seriously. Yes. Direct channel, huh? Direct. Open up a direct channel. Networking. This is the Qari Saab network. This is what Qari Saab has been teaching. So, people, what is going on? Mufti missed some super chats. Let me see. Mufti is playing Call of Duty haram. Some imams are saying video games are haram. No, video games ain't haram. I'm going to inshallah. I've purchased a different computer system, but I haven't had it set up yet. It's come, but all the kind of other things haven't come, the accessories, and so I'm going to kind of revamp all of this soon in the coming weeks, and then I will try to play some games, not too many, but one-off. Some of these stream. We'll try. We'll get to that maqam. All right. So what else? Does cigars break the wudu? Do cigars? Is it a direct channel that you're opening with the cigar, or is it? I know, no, brother. This one, no, nice. So smoking does not break the wudu. It is the only thing that breaks the wudu is relieving yourself, going to the toilet, and you understand what that means, whatever that means, and also engaging meaningfully, rather, in sexual activity. So, and the reason I said meaningfully is because some scholars then debate any form of sexual contact, even if it's not that. So, for example, kissing now depends what kind. This is where the scandals begin, the scandal. So if I go into explaining these rulings, and people are like, Toba, ka ho raha hai? This one. So, but, like somebody could say a peck on the cheek, or just a simple peck, does that break wudu? And no, that kind of stuff wouldn't. So this is why I said meaningful. If it's meaningful, then a person renews their wudu. But other than that, you don't break your wudu by eating anything or doing stuff like that. Okay, cool. What else was there as a super chat? Let's take a look, people. Shukran, much love. Waker. For a moment, I thought, what kind of a name is Waker? Cha. Super chatted. Much love for the super chat. Shukran. Alistair Black, rather, says, please explain the concept of haram money. Actually, yes, Alistair, that's an interesting question. Money in and of itself is never, haram, halal per se. It is money which has no internal or intrinsic kind of moral value associated to it. It is how you earn that money that is then that gives it a particular moral value. So you steal something, it is then haram. Okay, you earn it, it is halal. That's how the moral values are applied to money. Money in and of itself is not it doesn't carry intrinsic moral kind of units or anything with it, value codes with it. So if somebody had stolen money, let's say, and he paid me to do something, I don't know, but I don't know that he stole it, let's say. So he says, well, somebody steals some money, they super chat it here. They go, yar, let's chuck some in Mufti's, drag him down to this pit of hell as well. We're going to be bored there. I think we should have Mufti here as well. Huh? He's already here. Acha. He's in the in the presidential suite. So now that money that they pay to someone is not haram money. Okay, so you go to a shop and you pay them money. Now, even if you'd stolen it, I'm just saying, which is a terrible thing, but it doesn't mean that shopkeeper taking your money, he's taken haram money, okay? But you bear the sin of the crime. So that's how it works. So money or objects in and of themselves do not carry a moral value. So cool, I hope that helps. And somebody may say, Mufti, hatu burhanakum. Give the dalil. Acha. You mean there's supposed to be a dalil for things I say? ऐसा होता है. अच्छा. So you want a dalil as well? Hatu burhanakum. So the dalil. People. You thought I wouldn't know the dalil. The dalil is, there is a hadith that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is with some companions and they are offered some food by Barira. I believe it's Barira in the hadith. But anyway, somebody prepares some food for them. So the Prophet is eating the food. And then somebody tells the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, this meat that we're eating, that you're eating more so, innaha sadaqah. This was a sadaqah. So here you may say, well, this is how you extrapolate. So, what's the point of that? What's the point? So why is this point? First of all, it hasn't finished the hadith, but why is this point important? ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué, mi gente? ¿Por qué? Because sadaqah is haram for the Prophet. anything of the Prophet said in a hadith that any sadaqah is haram for me and my family. And this is actually a testimony to the character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you see somebody in that position would have opened the gates to receive gifts and receive, like charity, and receive, like, encourage people to give, because Islam is encouraging so much about giving and charity. The Prophet himself would have been the number one portal to whom they give. Like, that's, think about it. That's so, and any person in that position may have definitely exploited that. So the Prophet made that haram on himself and his family. So this meat, because it's sadaqah meat, it would be haram for the Prophet to eat it. So the Prophet says, in response to the person, yes, it is sadaqah. He says, sadaqatan, he says, sadaqa lahum wa hadiyatun lana. You see, he says the sadaqah was given to them. That transaction ends there. And them to us is a gift. Like, they've just invited us and said, here, have some food. So this hadith, it shows what is called admu ta'addi, or admu ta'adiyatil ilal. You think Mufti just watches TV series? You think I just have these books here? So the ta'adiyatul ilal is the ruling jumping across. So it doesn't go across, it stays in its place. The technical term, munhasirun fi mahalli. So this is a good point, people. So do remember that money, it isn't, you don't need to feel guilty. Obviously the person doing the crime is guilty, but if, like, a person works in a shop and all kinds of people come in, and maybe junkies are coming in, and people that you suspect are drug dealers, or like, it doesn't mean that because they've bought something from your shop that you need to feel guilty. Okay. All right. So what is going on? Ammar saying Mufti taking 5 minutes to make sure we know he's an actual Mufti. अबे सालो करना पड़ता है यार, करना पड़ता है. This is this one demand, जनता की demand, the public demand. Who is Abdul Majid? Who is Abdul Majid? Oh, Abdul Majid. Yes, of course. That's this week. We're going to be having a discussion on Mindtrap, inshallah, on Thursday night, which will cover the topic of Bukhari Gate. Why? It won't cover why Bukhari Gate, but it'll cover these questions that I've raised. So that'll be interesting. You know what it is? I want people to engage me, because the problem is that, you see, when nobody engages you, obviously they're not engaging you because really a lot of them are just too insecure and they're not clued up on these kind of topics. But still, it doesn't show the worth of the argument unless it's being kind of discussed. So yeah, maza aayega, maza. So I think that will be fun. Who is he? He is a Ahlul Hadith scholar, a Salafi Imam, who is based in Luton, England. This is all I know about him, that he came to the UK. He's ethnically Indian, but he came to he lived in Dubai for I think a substantial period of time. His name is, he has the title doctor, so he says he's done a PhD. I'm not sure, it doesn't say what his PhD is in. It's a good point, actually. I'll ask him, what is your PhD? What's the thesis in? And he lived in Dubai. He came here, I think, maybe 10, 15 years ago. And he's been, I think, an imam of a mosque. Or he's been operating, I'm pretty sure, maybe an imam or a kind of part-time imam in some masjid. But yeah, cool. I do think I think it'll be interesting. Like I mentioned, I did think that I did watch some of his stuff. I'm gonna be honest, like in some of his things initially, he you see the backdrop was he first made contact with me when the Jesus thing happened. Huh? Jesus thing. So, and that time he was very polite and respectful, and he said he'd like a dialogue on the second coming of Jesus. So I said, yeah, cool. And we had some intermediaries, and I kind of messaged saying, look, what, invite him down. Let's come down. But he didn't really come down, and I think he wanted me and Asrar or something, Sheikh Asrar, to attend his masjid whilst he gives a speech on the matter, which, come on, that was never going to happen. I mean, and so, um, I mean, okay, so maybe he took offense to that. That we didn't ghost him, but we weren't interested in going to his mosque. But I did invite him down at that time. This is this is early 2018. I said to him, look, come, you could be a guest, you can stay, we'll sort out accommodation and we'll have a dialogue. But he didn't turn up. He didn't follow that through. Then I remember a while later, I don't know whether it was I don't know when, maybe like half a year later or something. Some of these people, my haters, as the Bukhari Gate thing started, so a lot of people started kind of hating on me because they didn't know how to answer it. So one of these people I knew, who was an imam, he lives in America. From years ago, like 3 years ago, he had some WhatsApp clip, audio notes of me kind of cracking some jokes and swearing. And, to be honest, this is nothing new. It's not like I say I don't swear. I've said openly swearing is not haram. I mean, I'm not swearing at someone in the thing. I'm kind of telling a joke. So I'm telling a joke that has swear words in it and stuff. So he decided to, I don't know, release that on YouTube. And they thought this will somehow bring me down because this was the time Bukhari Gate was going on. So they thought that this will somehow, or it was kind of bubbling up, Bukhari Gate was. So they thought that this will somehow bring me down. Obviously, what they didn't realize is this, I don't pretend to be pious. I mean, in fact, so many people watched it and actually loved it. So I was like, okay, that weirdly backfired. Although when it was first released, I was kind of disappointed because they made it out as though I was swearing at someone, which it wasn't. Like, if you can understand Urdu, you can tell I'm just cracking a joke. But they titled it that, look, this is how he speaks to his detractors and people who challenge him. And it wasn't. It was just, me saying, oh, somebody says this. And Chalo, you can check it out, but it's in Urdu. And so at that time, Dr. Abdul Majid, what he did was he made a video really kind of slating me, like really going in at me. And I remember because, some people sent it to me at the time, few people sent it to me at the time saying, oh my God, and he really went in, made, this person disgusting, and he's like this, and he's scum, and blah, 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 and, like all this. And because of that, I kind of had no interest in ever engaging him, just because of the kind of tone and stuff he was using about me. Now, recently, he kind of emerged again with this Bukhari Gate. I've got the answers to Mufti Abu Layth's Bukhari Gate. Now, his first clip was kind of, I don't know, like it was still a bit smug, but it was kind of okay. I just didn't understand what his points were. And then he seems to have got offended again because he made a video clip saying, look, so the first clip, he goes on for about 2 hours. I didn't get the point though. So I said that in a Monday nights, and he does say in it, I challenge, I want a discussion. So I said, yeah, TK, let's have a discussion. Come on, Mindtrap. Then he made another video putting a bit of ilmi points in there, but also being quite rude, but not full on rude, but saying things like, Abu Layth, his worshippers, La ilaha illallah, Abu Layth, Rasulullah, this kind of stuff, and going on saying like, oh, Abu Layth just thinks he thinks everything about him is so good. He thinks his Arabic is so good. He thinks this is so good. He thinks, like being constantly being very kind of, but he's not full on like he wasn't kind of swearing at me in this, but he was being, hence I said, look, I don't want to let's call him on still. Let's have this chat and let's see how it goes. So I'm hoping that the discussion is positive. It doesn't turn into this kind of, because when he's spoken about me, even just last week, 2 weeks ago on this clip, it was a bit not borderline, it was rude, but it just wasn't swearing. So I was thinking to myself, well, chalo, even if he wants to, it's not like it's the first time, but I'm hoping he can bring ilm and answer the questions. Cool, let's move on, people. Mufti, check my super chats. Are you super jolly, huh? Mr. Super Jolly. Hi. Why does my jolliness bother people? Why? ¿Por qué? Yunus Nomani Saab. He was a great debater. He's from a kind of a shoot of the Deobandi backdrop, although he had his own opinions and quite different. Not all Deobandis agree with them. They're very critical in certain things. So he, many years ago, came here to Birmingham, and he was doing a Khatm Nabuwat conference, and they had other scholars there, and it was about obviously the finality of the prophethood of the Prophet ﷺ. And this conference is usually done by Deobandis annually in reply to Qadianis. So even though, to be honest, I don't really think Qadianism is a threat. I don't think you really need to kind of go at Qadianis and stuff like that, because I don't see it as a threat or anything. So, but they do this every year. So the whole point is it's aimed at it's aimed at common Muslims, but the indirect channel is a reply to Qadianis. So whilst he was at this place before he began, Sheikh Saqib Shami Sahib, those of you that know Saqib Shami, in those days he was rising here. This is going early 2000s, so it's like it's it's about mid 2000s. So he was still he was still rising to fame. He's not like now, he's like really, he's seen as a sheikh of tariqah, and he's very kind of now dignified in his character. But back then he was quite very challenge and all about debating. I want to debate people. He'd go to Green Lane, I challenge you. He was all like that. That was his kind of a claim to fame, the challenge. This Asrar, not doctor, what Asrar Rashid Ratwi Sahab, our beloved, the same thing he did to become popular. It was go around, try and challenge people to debates. But he picked this up from, won that whole culture, but his kind of predecessor in it was Sheikh Saqib Shami, because he used to at one time be Sheikh Saqib Shami's kind of like right-hand man. But then Sheikh Saqib Shami kind of distanced him, and hence they, politics. So Sheikh Saqib Shami comes in, and he comes in with a little entourage. And he's not this huge sheikh back then, but he comes in with little entourage, and they disrupt the show. So they yell these cries out about what is it? Which about a Brilvi alim, Sayyid Asad. Maulana Sayyid Asad. He's a big Brilvi alim who also debates, and he knows Nomani Saab from Pakistan. So anyway, they disrupt this show. He comes in. This is in Birmingham Central Mosque, by the way. So they come in, and they've got a slogan. I've forgotten the slogan now, but it had Sayyid Asad in there. And so they come, and saying this really loud, disrupting the whole. Everybody's kind of like, what do we do? What do we do? And they're standing there. So Yunus, and you got to understand, Yunus Nomani Saab, he had a presence to him. He definitely did. He was one of those traditional type of daunting kind of experience, presence, and big, and and that voice, and and so none of the imams, Maulanas on the stage thing, whatever, on the panel, they didn't know what to say. So he said, "Let me speak," and he goes up there, he slams the table, and he goes, "What?" Because, Sheikh Saqib Shami said, "I challenge you to a debate." He goes, "Tu kaun hota hai? Who the hell are you?" He goes, "Go send your dad, Sayyid Asad. I will debate him right now." And he proper flips. And he goes like, "Oh!" So everybody's like, "What? These guys crapped it." They just like, Sheikh Saqib's crew, like they just immediately kind of left the masjid. So this was in the days that a lot of action used to happen in mosques. So Maulana Yunus Nomani, he goes, Khatm Nabuwat, it's a Khatm Nabuwat conference. It's to do with the finality of the Prophet. He goes, "Why is it bothering these people, like the Brailvis?" So he goes, "Taklif unhe honi chahiye thi." That the pain was meant to be felt there, right? With them. He goes, "Unhe honi chahiye thi. Unke ejenton ko kyun ho rahi hai?" He goes, "But why are their agents the ones feeling the pain?" But it's just hilarious. You guys reminded me of that, so I don't even now. I've kind of lost my train of thought. So where are we, people? Mufti, will a person who doesn't shave their there gender fluid or plural? Yeah, sound confused, confused. Gender fluid, plural, gender fluid. And this is another thing that, all the murids of Pir Sahibs, they refer to their sheikh as they, which ironically today has become synonymous for either plural or gender fluid. It's like that awkward moment when the Pir Sahibs are in the same kind of queue as the gender fluid people. So, will a person who doesn't shave their private parts be in the deepest pits of hell along with the mustache man? I don't know what movies, what genres you've been watching of Tava, you, nothing. Right, nobody's going to hell for a mustache, and nobody's going to hell for not shaving their pubic hair. Okay, so the terminology for it is the strict terminology is jant ke baal. Right, so this is a hygiene issue. Okay, this is in Islam, it's hygienic. You ought to do it. It's like a hygiene thing. It's not something which is about hell, heaven. But what it is Islam has, with that hygiene matter, it's tied in a sense of punto. Except, you see, godliness is next to cleanliness. So when a person is more hygiene, they're in a better state of purity, of cleanliness, of, they have that, it heightens their sense of spirituality. So that's what it is. And you have to remember that, look, these things back then, the language this was a time when there was no science of germs and bacteria and stuff like this. These things didn't exist. Yet religions tried very hard to maintain hygiene standards. And they did it by associating it with the pleasure and reward from God and the proximity, closeness to God, which I think, to be fair, is an amazing, it's a brilliant way of doing things. So, yeah, cool. Right, so what else is going on? Mufti, what is the Ark of the Covenant in Islam compared to other faiths? What is the Ark of the Covenant in Islam? You see, there's a brief mention of this kind of Ark of the Covenant in the Quran, but it's not clear what these things are. So it mentions that there was this tabut, this kind of thing that is carried, and I know people call a casket a tabut because you kind of carry the dead person in it. But tabut initially wasn't kind of restricted to a dead casket, but it was something that is kind of carried as well, that as it has contained certain things. Now it does mention that Banu Israel had this mimma taraka alu Musa, that from what the family of Moses had left, that it says that in it was baqiyatum mimma taraka alu Musa, that what the family had left, that was in it. Now it doesn't mention what that was, and it says wasakinatum min rabbikum wa baqiyatum mimma taraka alu Musa. So this sakina, abhi not khala sakina, you got cha. Khala sakina was in the Ark of the Covenant. Sakina is, apart from just being a desi auntie's name, is in Arabic it means tranquility, this kind of sakina. Now, many mufassirin just translated that as, it was just tranquility, or it's something that a source of tranquility. Maybe it was the laws, maybe it was the tablet, maybe, like they interpreted, they had to kind of do a bit of guesswork and assume. It's interesting, actually, what Ibn Faris, the Maliki, what he translated as, the early 4th century linguist, Maliki scholar. He also has a book on Sirah, and he also has something on certain words of the Quran. Now, Ibn Faris, he translates this sakina as, he says, it was these particular, he seems to describe what resembles the cherubim, these kind of statues that were on this Ark of the Covenant, which is mentioned in the Bible, but generally not mentioned in Islamic sources. That the Ark of the Covenant, that it did have this kind of cherubim, which were these winged kind of creatures, with, some say, like a dragon face, or maybe a lion face, but with wings. So maybe like a lion or a tiger face with wings. He describes it as something which has wings, but maybe the face of a cat. This is how he describes it, and he refers to that as sakina. That's what it was, the cherubim, which were the kind of, what are the cherubim? There's a huge discussion in biblical sources. Some say they're just another kind of creation that are preserving this kind of covenant thing, which I would argue also, I would just, sorry, not argue, but point out, I think in many ways more fits, it's quite fitting with that whole Akhenaten thing of, of statues. Having that even though monotheism was there, but there were still certain statues and stuff like this. It's interesting because that's when the pharaohs would go out, they would take a mobile kind of holy temple with them. Not a temple, but a holy, a mobile temple unit, which would kind of move around. And this is exactly what this Holy of the Holies and the Ark of the Covenant becomes in Judaism. So it's like, there's nothing, like, we can't seem to relate to it because of our understanding of Tawheed and everything. But I hope that's helped. Okay. But that was a good question. Mufti Mahmoud Abdul Baqi, you're doing it, Abdul Baqi, you're doing it. Would it be halal to perform music or dancing at a concert? Would it be okay to make a living off it? Is it the same for men and women? Scandal, huh? Scandal, this one. So, hidden hater, huh? Hidden hater. Look, dance in and of itself is not haram, but obviously there are socio-cultural perspectives and influences on giving value to certain things. So certain cultures don't really see dancing as in fact, I suppose now it's a bit different here because certain dancers or singers, and it's not so much dancers, but it's more so the singers or movie stars. The celebrity culture has become because it's become an incredibly elitist, multi-million-dollar culture. So it's naturally now superimposed on it that prestige. But otherwise, in and of itself, many people don't see it as, like, they might see it as, okay, you're neutral, but they don't necessarily see it as something like prestigious. And yeah, so I would say, and I think Muslim cultures more so don't like it. And they see it kind of, even if they don't deem it haram, some of them do and some of them don't, but even if they don't, they see it as like a lowly profession, like something, they don't see it as a profession, which, to be fair, I can kind of understand. I'm not saying it's haram, it's not haram, but I don't. And then again, there are people who are professional choreographers and dancers, and it is a profession. But I can see that, that certain people won't see, it's like, oh, he's a dancer. Acha. Neurosurgeon, huh? Acha, that's what it is. Astrophysicist. That's so it's not really, it's always an uphill struggle, especially in Muslim cultures. So I would say you must keep that in mind. And the problem is, you see, with women doing it, obviously, because nowadays a lot of dance, especially for women, involves a sensuality to it, so that will be looked down upon even more. So you do have to, I think, just keeping propriety in place, even if it's not a haram halal issue, keeping these things knowing that this is how people will still see. And the problem as well, in many societies, you have to remember, dancing women were often, I'm not saying it is the case now, but they were, you have to remember, for hundreds of years in the Muslim world, the prostitutes generally were dancers. So even the whole Nawab elitist culture in India, Muslim India, or in the Middle East, that a lot, not, I'm not saying every prostitute was always a dancer, but the general kind of the quota kind of um, mm, phenomenon was where people would go and a woman would dance, and she would be a professional dancer and she would sing and everything, but she would then be also up for other forms of gratification. Now you have to, I'm not saying that's the case today. Definitely isn't. In case somebody goes up and makes a proposition. He goes, well, Your Honor, I'll tell you where this began. It began with Monday nights with Mufti. I sat down I was taking notes, Your Honor, and I thought, let's apply some of this fiqh. So, no, that's not, look, it's not the case. However, one must take into consideration that centuries of a mindset is going to be there in that Muslim community. Yeah, yeah, and the rest, it's your life. Do whatever the hell you want, but yeah. I wonder, let's see, what are some of these comments? Because I get a heart attack and what's that? Maybe not. Siraj, Inaya, how come paradise is so sensual? That's an interesting. Oh, sorry, are you just asking Inaya? Cha 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 cha. Tika, sorry. Would you like us to leave the chat and leave the? You're Siraj, huh? Having a one-way convo on the on the live chat. Somebody said, I'm looking at the, sorry Mufti, instead of listening to you, I'm looking at the live chat. What is the solution for people who don't have the means to marry and avoiding zina? See, this is a very real question. And I think Asim said, pole dancing gets you closer to God. Direct channel, direct. Huh? This isn't the cha. I thought qutb. You know, the qutb is pole. It's also used in Islamic terminology for somebody saintly. Qutb. They're like, cha, this isn't the qutb. Cha. Now, but coming back to that serious question, I feel that is a very serious question. I think, look, in many ways, the truth is this is why religion is failing people. And I'm not saying religion doesn't have the inbuilt mechanisms to deal with it, but scholars ain't ready. You know, the people, the gatekeepers of God, the gatekeepers of God ain't ready to have that conversation. So, you know, it is what it is. And it's just, I guess, because you can't say to people, you know, these urges and these things are natural. Natural. So you can't say to people, oh, just don't. It's like, no listening. This one deaf. So the, right. So, but the truth is, what are some solutions then? And then the problem is all that cultural thing. That's another problem. You know, we're not ready to have that conversation either. So, yeah, man, it's a proper, you know, it's a proper crap storm, isn't it? Because it isn't. Maybe I would say maybe mut'a, things like this are answers. Maybe, you know, the recognition of certain relationships to have a similar understanding because of exclusivity as a nikah. But then the cultural issue comes in that people ain't allowed for, you know, that kind of dating thing isn't there. So in the Muslim cultures, so it's just, I don't know. It's like trying to say, let's operate according to a medieval kind of manual in a cosmopolitan 21st century part of the world. But the truth is, even the medieval people weren't like that, because in all honesty, the medieval people were probably had more access to sex to the sex than people today. In maybe not all people, so I don't think there was an equal distribution. Today there's probably more of a distribution of access. So whereas I suppose in the past, because the divide between the haves and the have-nots was much, disparate, much more so stark. But today it's less so in certain parts of the world. So there's more access, but strangely, it's today it's an issue. It is. And then society is hypersexualized as well. So I get that, but yeah, I think in the past people were quite. You have to remember there was there was what the right hand, the credit card possesses. The credit card. So you have to remember, and there were things like, and this is, I suppose, people would say from a male perspective, yeah. They would say that, I'm sure the men were sleeping with all the maids and the they were, they had all the slave girls, the maids, servants, wives. Just the sorry, I went into a daydream mode there. So, but in all honesty, you don't know. The women as well were probably with all this, with all the what is it, the servants and the other male workers around them and stuff. And I think, in all honesty, it must have been happening. It must have, if you read the books of adab and literature, they speak about, that they were having affairs, and women with women were having affairs. In fact, I remember reading with one book about it was explaining why the woman was actually, and this is medieval Muslim Arab, obviously from the scholarly thing, but why they were justifying it. They were saying, look, it's just much I suppose not, they weren't saying cleaner from a sanitary perspective, but they were saying it's like there's no pregnancy, in lesbianism, and there's no this and no that, and yeah, so I think they were all up to it as well, and in many ways much more up to it. And today I think it's maybe distributed more, but because the hype of it has kind of gone up so much. Yeah, but it is a mess. And the religion today, the problem with, religion back then just kind of accepted it. So whether you agree with it or not, like you could say, look, why did Islam, why did the scholars say this is okay, that's okay, having sex servants is okay? But in all honesty, from a pragmatism point of view, or just putting the morality aside, their religion kind of worked for them. Maybe not all the way, but in a huge part of the way, it kind of worked for them. It didn't kind of impede their lifestyle. It worked with it. Maybe not 100% of the way, but to a great degree. And today, there's just like, religion just doesn't offer really anything. It just says, well, okay, why don't you have a formal marriage? And who the hell's gonna and not people ain't ready to do that, and people ain't ready to, because society then says, oh, if you're gonna marry, it's got to be the one, the one. It's like, who the hell is this one? The one. And it's like, oh my god, oh my, and then the wedding's got to be it's extravaganza, and it's got to be like, whoa, so and so did this, and I got to do this, and it's so competitive that, and it costs a lot. It's incredibly costing. So people, they ain't, it's definitely like, let's say you get a 19-year-old, a 20-year-old, they wouldn't be in a position to do that. No way. I mean, maybe when they're close to 30, but yeah. So these are some very difficult kind of challenges facing religion in this day and age. Let's take shukran, those of you sending the super chats. Ilyas saying nate. To know people, their true lives. Zeba says it's hard to get to know people, their true lives. So hard to find real honest people. Yeah, but that's true. I honest. I think, you see, does anybody really ever know anybody? That's true, isn't it? Like, how well do you know anyone? I think you can know a side of someone, but then ain't we just wearing masks in front of like, as in, even if it's not being fake, but it's a particular attitude, let's say, you may behave in a particular way with your parents, and a particular way with your boss, and a particular way with your children, and a particular way with your friends, and a particular way with a spouse. It's not, and that is a kind of a side, an angle, a facet to your personality. So does that person know you the way maybe the other people that see a different side to you know you? Probably not. So I think that's a point. And then, the problem is as well that these, you see, I think the kind of the lure is too strong. The farce, the force is, I think the force is too forceful. But seriously, I think it's you see, in this world of Instagram, there's just instant gratification. There's too much of it, and the mind, the brain can't get enough. And because look, these things, like, what they do to the brain is there is a release of dopamine that kind of goes through these dopaminergic kind of pathways. Yeah, this is the same thing, the kind of level at which it happens, especially when sexuality is involved, or looking at it, is the same as taking a shot of cocaine. I mean, that is incredibly powerful. So this is why it's so addictive, these kind of things are. And now, constant, and the problem is that, you see, it's always the search for the better. Maybe there's always something better, isn't there? There's always, you may say, oh, look, that person looks good, that girl looks beautiful, that guy looks handsome, whatever. But then you'll see someone that's better. And then you'll see someone, and I suppose this is more so men, maybe more so. I could be judgmental, but I think it's more so men. And it is true as well. I do agree that a lot of, I don't know about the US though, but I think in Britain, a lot of the kind of certain Muslim minority ethnic men, especially within the Pakistani thing, there is a huge issue as well. I don't know what it is, that this is this kind of like they're a mess, some of them, man. And I'm not saying this as a diss, but there is this I don't know what it is, this cuzzy bro, any cuzzy one, toseta, cusme, cuzzy. And you can see why it unfortunately pushes so many women into this kind of hardline feminism. You can see it sometimes why, because the attitude of some of these men, it's appalling, man, appalling. I hear things, I hear cases, I speak to people sometimes. It's shocking, man. Like the kind of treatment, the kind of, do this, just that whole, they do treat, they do treat some of these women like absolute dirt, and that's just, it's adding to this whole kind of cesspool of a complete cataclysmic mess that we've already got as Muslims. And I think it's a problem, yeah. But I don't know, once again, I don't know what the solution is. What is the solution? But I think that may be that the kind of background of, let's say, Pakistanis within the UK generally being Mirpuri from Azad Kashmir with a rural background. That, I think, is a contributing factor. I'm not saying this against, my own roots are from there as well, but so it's not kind of, I'm not against, but I'm just saying it is a sad factor. I read things and I speak to actual people. I see actual cases, and I'm like, like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? He needs a good, needs to be fixed up. And I don't see, but then, I don't know, there is a bit of back and forth, but that is a fair point. I do say that. I agree that that is more a male issue. And I know sometimes I have attacked feminists and stuff, which I don't agree with the hardline feminists at all. I do believe that they are kind of cancerous. But I can see when you see stuff like this, you understand why that's increasing, because the way certain people are behaving. So I would see things, like I've spoken to people who are in relationships, broken down, treating the woman ridiculously, and doesn't want to be, like, can't stand her, and won't allow the woman to be divorced. It's like, what kind of, is this guy's brain on another level of, is he, this is where the geniuses are like, what is he seeing that we're missing in this equation? This guy's either on some Einstein level of, breakthrough, or, like, I don't understand why you're torturing yourself, you're torturing her, you're torturing people around you, you're living in a misery. Why? I don't get it. If something doesn't work, just khalas, peacefully. Imsakum bima'arufin or tasrihum bi'ihsan. See, that's the best thing the Quran says. Hold on, bima'aruf, with kind of civility, or or tasrihum bi'ihsan, or you kind of separate gracefully. But yeah, let's move on, people. Let's take a look. Let's see some super chats. Salam, Red Sulfur, you're doing it. Why is paradise in Islam described in such a sensuous? Because Red Sulfur. Aji sunte ho. You see, the Red Sulfur, mi amigo, that's because the sax, it sells. Okay, it sells. And people, you see, the moment you mention it, you straight away, people are like, huh? Acha. Acha. Islam in the Quran. Acha. In Islam. Of course I want to learn more about Islam. So this is why it kind of sells, you see. So, and I don't mean that in a bad way, although I suppose it can be understood in a bad, but it's in a functional way that this works. People want it. They're given that imagery. But I don't think that, obviously, the afterlife isn't about these kind of things, but that imagery is there for the people that it would resonate with. Right, so, okay. Salam, how to find true Sunnah from Hadith books. Ya Mahfuz al-Kabir. Ya Mahfuz. You see, the simple principle is that what the scholars of Hadith themselves give. ما لم يباين المعقول, it doesn't clash with reason. لم يخالف المنقول, doesn't go against the Quran. ولم يناقض الأصول, it doesn't uproot an Islamic principle. I would say the safer bet is to learn fiqh. Okay, take your sunnah from fiqh and make some amendments here and there. That's the safer way. Don't try and do it the other way around. Walker super chatted again. You're doing it, Walker. You're doing it. Much love, much love. Love from Indiana, USA. All right, Indiana. You got to say, a lot of the American things do sound cool, though. There is a coolness to it. You gotta say, huh? Have you thought of building an academy where more knowledgeable muftis with reasoning come out clean? And clean or dot accumulated. Right. So the problem with academies or institutions, why I've never gone this way. ये जो मोहब्बत है, ये unka hai kaam. In the old song, that this love, it's an affair for those people. That this, you see, institutions, academies, they, I feel, kind of suck the soul and life out of an individual. I suppose anything, like they are so, it will consume you. It will consume you. And it's like anything, like if you, once you run with something, you will kind of like become very attached to it. And you will try your best, in the words of Ustad AbdurRahman Hassan, sweat and blood. Sweat, and blood as well, blood. Now, yeah, and you kind of, that takes up your life. I think it subsumes you, it becomes bigger than you. And I suppose that could have a positive connotation, but in this way, I feel you don't get to enjoy life. You don't get to enjoy things. You don't get to, it just, you're worried about this thing, about it failing, about getting, and because you see, religion, you have to remember, religion is a kind of, it's not on the top 500 markets of the world. Yeah. It's a flop kind of market, you see, selling to religion. So whereas if you were to say, yeah, let's open a restaurant, now that will consume you as well, or let's open a business, markets are still in currency. Running a madrasa or an academy is running an entire upstream project where you are constantly trying to sell this thing. And even, like, let's take somebody as successful as Sheikh Hamza Yusuf as an example. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf is, he's an icon. He's always going to have that maqam in the hearts of many of us, especially those of us who were, around in the 90s, for example, when he rose, just, electrifyingly. He kind of like rose to such heights. Now, he initially had this thing about this concern for people. Like, let's educate people. Let's connect with people. Let's do this with people. Let's do this with, and hence he rose massively. And he kind of really, Hamza Yusuf's fame was all made before, maybe the year 2001. Hamza Yusuf was Hamza Yusuf back then. Like, he still now is riding that wave. This isn't a new wave. Yes, he may have a new audience, like a select. In fact, his audience has kind of narrowed, but he may have kind of gone into certain elite elements, but he is still riding that success. This is how incredible that success was. So, and then, okay, 9/11 happened, and he went into certain roles and, became an advisor to Bush, and okay, got a bit of backlash and stuff. Okay, fair enough. But Zaytuna, now I think Zaytuna is an incredible success. You look at his school, he's kind of now made it as he mentioned he's got the affiliate programs with certain universities, and he's got all of that secured. I mean, this is an incredible, and it produces certain very talented people, doesn't it? It does. I mean, I don't know if they're as talented as him, but but they seem very kind of like, they seem like the kind of person that you think, mashallah. presentable kind of, they seem to speak well, and they seem to, I don't know how clued up they are Islamically, but I assume that they're more clued up than just certain people. I don't think they're proper on an alim level, but I think they're still very uniquely placed. But let's be honest, since Zaytuna, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf is really just a life support machine for Zaytuna. All his things, even if you think of this UAE thing, which has gained him so much negative traction, right? People have slammed him for being a sellout scholar, for doing this, working for governments, giving all these. Really, these kind of links he's making, it's ultimately for Zaytuna. Because, making a link with the government it's huge financing. It lubricates the kind of industry you're running. Because if he was just as a person, you see, then you're kind of just cutting your own losses. Like, I think, well, I don't need this heat. You can F off, mate. I'm going to spend a week out there, chill out. You're kind of free. You're a free spirit. You don't have to worry about, oh my God, if I say no to them, how will my institute survive? Like now, everything is about Zaytun, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but really, Hamza Yusuf has, the question could ask that, and I don't mean to diss him, but what has he produced? He's produced an academy, but what has he dealt with as a person? Like his ideas, maybe an occasional video you get once in a year. Like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf hasn't provided any like breakthrough fatwa, breakthrough narrative challenging responses, or wow, like something that really, he hasn't done anything like that, because really that's not his goal anymore. His goal is that, look, if I do something like that, if I give a fatwa saying this is, and I present research, I'm going to get hate. The hate means that my institute's going to get attacked. I'm going to lose funding there. So sorry, so you become a slave to the institution. And that, my child, is something that this free spirit is not born to become. So I don't want to become a slave to an institution. I like enjoying life. I like these kind of this life. Look, nobody knows anything about life. How long, God forbid something happens to someone, nobody knows. Look, in COVID, people that were strong and healthy just went, because your oxygen stops. What the hell are muscles or good health gonna do if you can't, absorb oxygen in your blood? It doesn't have to be through COVID, but I'm just saying. So why not the life you have? At least enjoy that. Live, laugh, love, learn, these things enjoy. And I enjoy giving narratives, challenging narratives, giving ideas. And you see, one of the freedoms I have right now is I can say whatever the hell I want to say. I can say whatever is on my mind as an opinion. And something? People who don't like it can't do a single damn thing about it. They can't do anything. Like, I'm not affiliated to any institute. Like, what are you going to do? Like, what can you possibly do? Whereas if I was doing something in a particular institute, people are cruel. I'm telling you, people are cruel. Even, you see, this is another thing. This is why I'm kind of invested in businesses and stuff and other things. If I try to have a career, can you imagine people will try to compromise my career with this? Is, I mean, alhamdulillah, I don't, but I'm just saying, this is how cruel people are. I've seen things where people will say something online and they work for a hospital, and people will start spamming. You'll get 100 people send a complaint, which isn't that much. It just takes one hating imam to tell his following that, can you get all your brothers and sisters, and everyone tells 20 people to send a a complaint to this company saying this person is out of character and doing this and blah blah blah, and companies just say, well, institutions just say, well, you're bringing disrepute and we got to sack you. And so you people have your cojones, they have your precious jewels in a vice. So no, these jewels rather precious. I like to keep them out of any vice, please. So yeah, so I hope that I'm getting carried away in answering some of these questions, but somebody said that's why I like animals. Freedom of speech. Yeah, man. It's, you know what, I you really enjoy it. I tell you, you think I'm joking. Years back, this was what, 2016, but it was after my prison thing. Yeah, I went to a retreat. I was invited. Check this out. These people asked me, please, can you come to a retreat? It's the youth and this stuff. And, it's just it wasn't just strictly aimed at youth. It was aimed at anyone. It was more like about fun stuff. There was Khalid Sadiq was going to be there performing, his nasheeds, his songs, and other people. It was a fun thing. There was activities, and they asked me, would you come stay the weekend? So I agreed. Now, can you believe that this is going about 5 years ago? Before the event, something like a week before, what the organizer contacted me and said, look, everything cool? Yeah, cool. And he just touched base and he said, look, I just want to update you that this is what's happened. But, we still want you and you're still coming. But that was just this person going out on a limb. He said, do you know, there's been certain, we don't know who, certain people who have been they contacted the venue saying that you have a criminal record. They contacted, the venue didn't really budge, didn't really care. They said, it's not our thing. You got to deal with it. Then they contacted somehow the police in that area. Now, the police didn't understand what the concern was because they said, so they just said, oh, we think this is a threat and it's a threat to the public and it's a threat to... So now it becomes a duty for the police to investigate it. And so they contacted several... The police then had to contact the organizers and say, what's going on? What's this threat? What's this thing? And they then said, look, there's nothing. There's no threat, blah, 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 blah. And it was fine. The police just said, well, okay, that's not really a threat, but still. Now, and that event went ahead and I went there. And I mean, to be fair, to me, it was just a regular, it wasn't something big, but this is the kind of extent to which people go. And when the venue tried to find out where were these complaints coming from, they said it was some person who claims to be a kind of a journalist, and he was, this is why it was threatening as well, because he was saying, oh, I'm going to get this reported now that you guys are being negligent, you're not investigating, but he was a Muslim. The person was a Muslim, by the way. And so, yeah, so this is why you love your freedoms, man. You're like, do whatever the hell you want, man. So, yeah. Was Mufti a hitman? That's my part-time job. I'm an assassin. In the other part-time job, I'm a movie critic. So, all right. So what's going down, man? What's going down, people? Let's take a look at some of the questions. Right. We had some questions from. Oh, right. So. People
laughing and joking too much and
right.
becoming excessive in that is an indication that a person lacks higher.
We had a leaked, it was not really a leaked, but a message from the private group, the official, the official group of Danny Boy. We've got a message right here, if you guys can see it. It says, Danny Boy sends out with, I don't know how many people. I think he may have, how many subscribers? about 3,000 subscribers. Wow. You're doing it, Danny boy. You're doing it, Danny boy. So he says, let's. Oh, yeah, I forgot to do my.
Let me add a little bit of spice to that.
Right. So Danny boy is saying that weekly reminder that Muslim academics in Islamic studies are overwhelmingly complete trash. There are a few who aren't murtads. That means apostates from Islam and heretics. No, sorry, the few who aren't murtads are heretics. They are also usually living very sad lives. I mean, unlike Danny Boy's other his better half, who unfortunately has to pray in a wardrobe. You can watch my video on that. They are living very sad lives because of the combination of spending their youthful years scrambling to get a PhD on next to nothing salary, plus their hatred of traditional family, means that most of them are alone and unmarriageable, especially the females, who are mostly snarling witches. Who are mostly snarling witches, sometimes literally witches.
The great, the genius, Danny Boy.
Danny boy, people. The telephone.
Challenge my boy.
Boy. Danny boy. Danny boy. So that's actual. This is actually from Danny Boy. I'm not making this up. And this is not a leaked. This isn't like, hey, I was chatting to my mates and I kind of got carried away. This is a notification to thousands of people with great confidence. You're Danny Boy. You're doing it, Danny Boy. So most of these are snarly witches. Why does Danny Boy hate on women? I don't get it, honestly. I don't understand. Men usually are, I don't know. I mean, seldom. I don't think. I mean, maybe you've met, but not experienced generally. Men that just hate on women like that. He seems to have some serious issue, man. Was there rejection? Was it the one that got away? The one. Usually in these kind of cases, there's a case of dil tod diya. This one, my heart is broken, broken. So I think usually there's and then that kind of results in this this kind of projection of self-loathing from rejection onto the whole genre. All want women, any woman, and then maybe chastising her in some attempt to kind of retaliate for your own for your own lacking and your own and a consequence of your lacking, your suffering. Yeah, it's sad, man. But yeah, I just read that. I was like, no way. Is this? I was like, is this? Somebody sent that to me. I was like, is this leaked? And the person said, no, this is. I subscribe to his bloody. It's an announcement. The guy's announcing it. Your confidence. That's the level of confidence you want, huh? Snarly witches. The amount of passion he poured into that statement, it's like, what the hell is he on about? So yeah, I heard somebody said, I heard Pakistani men don't allow that either. I think any people that don't allow education, if somebody wants it, it's just insecurity, man. It's insecurity. That person has a bigger problem. They are the problem, not the other person. They are the problem. I don't know what a person is so insecure about. They're like, look, if she goes out, she does this, then she's going to leave me. And like, if that's the fair enough. I mean, wouldn't you be like trying to get her to trying to get rid of her? You're like, go find an opportunity and just. You want me to call you an Uber, help you with the? Shall I pack the bags as well? So let's move on, people. That was our beloved Danny boy, and we've got for our Danny boy
The great, the genius,
Danny boy. Boy, people, boy.
Mentally challenge my boy. Mental boy.
Mantle boy. This is the Danny boy. So, yep. People, Mufti, will you ever grow your beard? I don't know. Sometimes I do. Look, there's a little beard there. I haven't shaved today, so that's all good. There it is. Right, so, my boys, what is going on, my boys? Hashim Khan. That's a slick name, though, huh? Hashim Khan. Wow. You're doing it, Hashim. Much love for the super chat, but you're doing it as well. You're doing it. So, what else have we got? Right, Ibn Rushd. I said I was going to cover... an introduction on the great legend of Muslim Spain, people. Right, so those of you that are familiar with Averroes, I've been asked by a few people about him, and I did say, look, this is a statue of him in modern Spain. It's in Cordoba, the city where he was. And he's somebody who is celebrated today by especially the West, known as Averroes. Some people say Averroes. However you want to say it. His Arabic name was Ibn Rushd, Abu Walid, Muhammad Ibn Rushd. Now, tell you a bit about him. He was born in almost about 900 years ago in the year... It was 520 Hijri. Now, he is born in Muslim Spain. Okay, he's born in a great family of scholarship. Great family. I mean, his granddad was, it's enough for me to say that his granddad was, who had the same name, Abu Walid ibn Rushd, and that's who he kind of takes it from. He's junior. They call him Al Hafid, the grandson, junior, in other words. His granddad was the supreme judge in Al-Andalus, especially of Qurtuba, one of the major entire regions, and he was an absolute authority. This person within the Maliki madhab as well. He's 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 one of the and the Chaudhries of the Maliki madhab. He's one of the four who Khalil relies on in his Mukhtasar. And he has that commentary on the Utbiyya known as Al-Bayan wa Tahsil. That is, so here's a little pointer that you may not know. You may. If in Maliki fiqh you hear the name Ibn Rushd, so if you're reading a Maliki fiqh book and it mentions Ibn Rushd, it will almost always be speaking about the grandfather. If they're going to mention the grandson, they will mention Al-Hafid next to him, and they seldom mention the grandson in the fiqh books. See, that's the story. That's the kind of tragedy. Although the Malikis didn't, from a fiqhi perspective, they didn't have an issue with Ibn Rushd. But he is one of the dons of philosophy. This person is born and raised in Spain, Cordoba. He's in this family of knowledge. It's all around him. The year he's born is the same year his grandfather dies. His father was also a judge, but not of such a high level, but also a judge. He studies from a young age. He qualifies as a physician, a doctor, a medical doctor of his age. In fact, he had a book. He has books on, on medicine and stuff like that. He studies physics. He has books on physics. He has books on mathematics, philosophy, Sharia, Quran, Hadith. He studies with, the likes of Ibn Bashkwal, major muhaddithin. I mean, this guy is huge. He writes in fiqh a book called Bidayat al-Mujtahid. This book is an epic. I mean, it's you can't really see it here, but no, it's up there, right? You can't really see it, but it's, if you want to teach comparative fiqh, it is one of the best books out there. It's so, wow, it's worth its weight in gold. So he wrote that in fiqh, and that just demonstrates his fiqhi ability. The man, he's quoting this madhab, that madhab, Awza'i, Sufyan al-Thawri, you mentioned this sahabi, that tabi'i, this riwayah of Malik, that riwayah, and he compares and he contrasts and he argues, and sometimes he gives, even if he doesn't give his own fatwas, but he kind of raises doubt towards, like he'll give you an inkling that you can understand, I get it. So, for example, does a woman require a wali to get married? If you read that, you can kind of see him saying, well, if you do want to go with it, but then he kind of raises, you're still kind of stuck. Even in making up missed prayers, it's interesting. Now, Ibn Rushd, that's in his Bidayat al-Mujtahid, as he was kind of growing up, he travels. Now, you have to remember, this is the era of the Mohads, the Muwahhideen, and I've got an entire course on the history of Al-Andalus. So they say at the age of 28, he travels to Marrakesh, which was the capital of the Muwahhideen and the Murabitin before them. Now, there you have this ruler called Abdul Mu'min ibn Ali al-Gumi, right? So Abdul Mu'min, he's this, great caliph, whatever. He passes away, and his son Yusuf is this, the person in charge. Now, Yusuf, he likes philosophy. Now, this becomes Ibn Rushd's portal into a prestigious career. But before we get to that, we got to understand, Ibn Rushd had this infatuation with philosophy. He loved it. Aristotle. I mean, he didn't just study, he analyzed, evaluated, synthesized. He was the representative. He would rep Aristotle. He had the title Ash-Sharih when it came to Aristotle, that he is the commentator on Aristotle. You want to understand what Aristotle is saying, you go to the commentator, who's Ibn Rushd. People, that's the level of donness. He's a student of who? Ibn Rushd in philosophy, he's influenced by Ibn Bajjah. Ibn Bajjah is also a very important figure, somebody who, he has a huge influence on philosophy, huge. Influences many people, non-Muslims, Jewish people of Andalus, of Muslim Spain. He influences this other philosopher called Ibn Tufayl, who's a contemporary to Ibn Rushd, influences him, writes books on topics like not only astronomy and philosophy, but also on the soul, and something on the phenomenological approach to the soul. How can we study the soul? It's interesting. I mean, this is it's huge. I don't know but nevertheless, this fellow student of Ibn Bajjah, Ibn Tufayl, is the guy who gets Ibn Rushd into the royal court. He kind of introduces him, and he's kind of heard of him, and he tells the caliph this guy's like something special, and the caliph wants to become a new kind of Ma'mun, like the Ma'mun of Baghdad hundreds of years before, who kind of brings in these Greek texts and translates them and has all this philosophy and this legacy. this guy wants to do something like that. So Ibn Tufail says to him, look, why don't you use Ibn Rushd and get him to translate? And then he's like, yeah, that's actually a very a very interesting point. So yeah, but right, so he gets him into that. Through this, he gets to know the caliph, he becomes a judge, then he kind of rules from different cities, Seville in Spain, which is known as Ishbilia, Cordoba, he kind of moves between them, he writes. And this is his kind of his rise to huge success and fame. And he becomes very dear to this caliph. The caliph kind of really likes him, opens up many doors for him. But people, the love of the powerful, can change like this. So the king, the caliph, al-Mansur. So this caliph dies. His son, who's known as Yaqub al-Mansur, and they call him Abu Yusuf. He's the guy who built the city Rabat in Morocco today. That was his capital. So he likes Ibn Rushd, and but then suddenly he changes, and he has him blacklisted, and he has him kind of punished, and he has him exiled, sent into exile. And he kicks him out of Cordoba and sends him to this city, to a town, that was mainly populated by Jews. It's called, in Arabic, they called it Al-Yasana, or Lucena in Spain. It's called Lucena. And it was I think they also call it Yuchena as well. But Lucena was the name for it. And it was almost an entirely Jewish. And they send him there as in, you get to live with the Jews. But the Jewish people really loved Ibn Rushd. And it's in this town that people like Maimonides were there. The famous Jewish Maimonides. He's a huge fan of Ibn Rushd, because Aristotle and all this knowledge is coming to them via Ibn Rushd. And, they're just kind of soaking it all up. So he suffers there for, it's tragic. The caliph does pardon him, but after the pardon, Ibn Rushd doesn't really live much longer. He passes away within a year, and then he's kind of buried. He dies, I think, in Marrakesh. He goes to the royal court, and then he's carried back. But this legend of a man, he really influenced in a significant way, or contributed significantly to the Renaissance within Europe. You see, it's a shame that Muslims, because he was such a legend in philosophy, Muslims kind of turned they kind of ignored him. And people accused him, you're a deviant, you're a heretic, you're a kafir, that kind of nonsense. And like they do, when you challenge stuff, and they called him a kafir and stuff like burn his books. They burnt his books and things like that. Hence, most of his books, actually, apart from the fiqhi one, the other books, they survived because they survived in Hebrew. So he wrote a commentary on Plato's Republic, and in fact, I did take it out here. This is it. It's called Talkhis al-Siyasa. It's a commentary on Plato's Republic, and he actually does a commentary the Islamic style. Where you bring a text and do a commentary like sentence for sentence, and this only survives because it was in Hebrew, and then it was kind of translated back into Arabic. But the Muslims kind of ignored it. They just felt that this guy's a deviant and so on, and he was a legend, and he was accused. You see, some of the reasonings, like they wonder, why did he, how did he kind of fall from grace? So, how did events turn so rapidly against him? And some people say they used statements he said against him. And one of them was that, in his time, there was this imam called Ibn Bandud. So that's like a contemporary. But anyway, this one day in Cordoba, there's this storm. So they find out a storm is coming. Like, people say, oh my God, there's a tragic storm's going to come. These huge winds, mega kind of strong gale forces. And so they're really freaking out that this wind's going to come. So one of the imams, this Ibn Bandud, he gathers people and says, what we've got to do is we've got to kind of do a tawbah. He says, because he says this wind that's coming is the second of its kind that came and attacked the Qawm of Ad in the Quran. I am mullahs. That's mad. You give mullahs a little story and they know how to run with it, huh? So, so he's telling people this is a curse that's coming on us. So Ibn Rushd, obviously a philosopher, is against superstition, and he was a Maliki, a major Maliki. So he tells people that this is nonsense, that there's no, this is not the second of its kind that afflicted Qawm Ad. So he gets into this heated argument, like some people challenge him, and one of them says something about Qawm Ad, and he says that this is allegedly, he made a statement saying, look, if Qawm Ad weren't even real, then how was the tornado that struck them real? Ibn Rushd. He's the kind that you could proper chill with. So some people say he made that statement because he didn't believe that all the stories in the Quran were necessarily, he believed some of them may have been allegorical, just trying to give a message. I'm not sure whether that's true, but it's believable that he could have said things because his views were kind of very philosophical. So they use this against him to tell the caliph that he's a kafir. He doesn't even believe in the Quran. He did believe in the Quran, but he believed that the Quran was there. You see, it's okay to have these kind of understandings for people because this is what people need. The other thing is he has a book on zoology, on animals. So in it, he mentions the king. So what people said to this king, Yaqub al-Mansur, they said to him that Ibn Rushd disses you in it, and he refers to you as the king of the Berbers. You see, the thing is, the Berber had a lot, even till today is for different reasons, but the Berber have suffered from an identitarian perspective. So they have, historically it's different. Today it's more political and about identity. They try to suppress the Berber language. It's mainly in Morocco and Algeria. But in the past, it wasn't the language. They weren't trying to suppress the language in the past. But in the past, they were seen sometimes, like people saw Arabs as like more superior. Because Arabs and Berber were just like Berber, right? So they were kind of seen as second class. Not that people necessarily but it's just it carried this thing, even if it wasn't. Like, let's say this is totally wrong. I'm just gonna be racist and say this, but like, for example, in the Desi culture, or especially the Pakistani culture, the way there's this stereotype of the Pathan, that this kind of person who doesn't think as much, and he's kind of like hot-headed, and he's crude, and he's not kind of polished up on his manners, and he's not like somebody that's seen as like very he's seen as like this kind of crude, almost like a rural lower class image of this person, although they is also seen as somebody incredibly brave. But this is the image that was very similar to the image of the Berber. So you see, you can imagine today there was a king and he happened to be Pashtun, but he ruled over because the Muwahideen ruled over a third of Africa. I mean, that is bloody huge. Nobody ruled what the Muwahideen ruled ever over that region, over that continent. They ruled 2 continents, the Iberian Peninsula, Portugal, Spain, the Balearic Islands, They ruled over North Africa, not Egypt though, but North Africa. And in this guy Yaqub's time, it was the greatest it ever reached. Even Salahuddin asks him for help. I mean, this is how powerful he was. So you can imagine somebody, if there's such a powerful king and you say, oh, he's calling you the king of the Barbar. It's like saying that somebody says they're calling you the king of the Pathans. But really, even though you're just because you are Pashtun, but because this person was Barbar himself, but really you rule over the entire Pakistan and India and this whole thing, but somebody's just calling you that. I mean, that's a huge offense. It was seen as so. They brought Ibn Rushd, and Ibn Rushd tried to justify. He said he did. Ibn Rushd, he did one of his. Oh, yeah. Oh, that. Funny thing that, I was trying to say, he says, no, that's a spelling, that's a typo. I wasn't saying barbar, I was saying Bahrain. Because you see, the ba looks like a ya, and the ra can look a bit like a noon, except if you just curl it up more. He said, I was saying the Malikul Bahrain, meaning the Malik of the two continents. The Bar, the Barru Afriqiya or Barru Andalus. So he says, I was saying the king of the two continents. Not the king of the Barbar, Malikul Bar. Yaqub al-Mansur was like, acha. Does it say, yahan pe Fuddul likha hua hai ka? He's like, sorry, is my name Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Mansur, or is it Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Pudu? So he basically said, cha, chalo, aja mere balma. So that's why he kind of suffered massively. But the man, Ibn Rushd, was a legend. Some of his books, he responds to Ghazali. Ghazali did attack all the philosophers. He had this book, which I did take out, called Tahafutul Falasifa. And what Ibn Rushd does is he refutes that and calls it which was incoherence of the philosophers. And he basically takes out these points and says, based on them, on these three crucial factors, all philosophers are kuffar. Ghazali having a senior moment. Ghazali did have his Bichara kind of, I wouldn't be surprised if because he had a mental breakdown. So, because he kind of just went to the desert and abandoned everything and just kind of, but then, he did emerge from it, alhamdulillah, safe and sound. But he did, I think, for maybe, whether it was a few years or whatever, arguably people would say, but he definitely went a bit strange. And so he wrote this thing dissing all philosophers, and then a century later, Ibn Rushd is the one who kind of counters it by calling it the incoherence of the incoherence. And he refutes him. And he actually explains that, look, Ghazali got it wrong because he bases a lot of his reading of philosophers on people like Ibn Sina and, other Farabi and these people. And he says that these people have they've been ill-informed. And that was actually true, because what happened in the early days when things were being translated, it wasn't clear what was Aristotle's views and what were Plato's views. So they were kind of mixing them up a lot as well. And then you had this school which emerges from Egypt, and it was by people like Plotinus, and it's called Neoplatonism, which basically believes in things like everything ultimately comes from God and then it emanates, and they have some strange, odd views about them. This is what Ghazali is actually refuting. So they believe that in Neoplatonism, you see ultimate serenity, like let's say paradise, can be here on earth. It doesn't need to be in an afterlife. Therefore, you don't need a resurrection, or you don't need continuity. But that's Neoplatonism. It's not Aristotle. or not even arguably Socrates or Plato, but the point is it's Neoplatonism. So Ghazali is refuting that, and he's aiming it at Aristotle and these people. So Ibn Rushd kind of agrees with him and says, look, yeah, I agree, these points are stupid, but these points really, you should be pointing at Ibn Sina. Why are you pointing it at me, at the philosophers? So yeah, so these were some interesting kind of things he does state. It is interesting. People say he hated Ghazali. I don't think he hated him. He actually has a summary of his Usul Fiqh book called Ad-Daruri fi Usul Fiqh. It's a summary of Ghazali's Usul. I did, before concluding on him, I will summarize. He does have, in his commentary of Plato's Republic, so the popular republic of the philosopher king and how the ideal city should be. He has a commentary on it, and it is actually quite fascinating. I thought I'd share some of these points, especially on Ibn Rushd. Occasionally, he kind of he kind of pens away his own thought whilst doing a commentary, and inadvertently gives us a window into his day and age. And it's interesting on the gender issue. So he does say that, look, because Ibn Rushd, he complains that women, it's unfair, men, not men, but the social attitude towards women. Because Plato is kind of speaking about that anyway at a particular point. I mean, he's not speaking about the social inequality, but he's just speaking about how women should be kept and so on in the ideal, republic. But then he says, you see, صح أن النساء ومن كل الطبقات متساويات مع الرجال. He says, but it's true that, look, men, and here he starts getting like writing away himself, saying that, look, men and women are really equal in all things. And then he mentions, he says it's true that, look, you can find women, because he's going to go on to complain that women in his day and age are wasted. They are a huge asset to society, but he says the only thing the only function women have in his society is giving birth. And he really has a dig at this. And he says that this is another interesting thing. In his day and age, women they outnumber the male population in his city by twice, as in by twice the numbers. So he mentions that. So he gives us a little insight. And he says, look, you find amongst them women who have the ability to be warriors, muharibat, hakimat, philosophers, hakimat, rulers. And he says, look, نحن نقول عن النساء طالما أنهن والرجال من نوع واحد فيما يخص الغايات القصوى من ذلك فإنهن متساويات مع الرجال بالنوع ومختلفات معهم بالدرجة. He does mention that, look, Islam says, he is going to kind of acknowledge that thing that, look, okay, men are they have that qiwama, because that was the society back then, that men were responsible for the household, so they had that kind of thing. But generally, putting that aside, he says that they are equal. And he goes on to say that, look, he says that this is why, he gives an example saying that, look, if we used, even in music, he says that the common saying is وَلِهَذَا يُقَال إِنَّ الْأَلْحَانَ تَكُونُ التَّامَّةَ إِذَا مَا وَضَعَهَا الرِّجَالُ وَأَدَّتْهَا النِّسَاءُ. He says that, look, musical instruments or music is only best directed if the instruments are created by the men, as in the craftsmanship, but delivered, as in the music, by women. And you see, this is a point. And he says, look, check this out. He says, وَنَحْنُ نَعْتَقِدْ أَنَّ النِّسَاء يَتَشَارَكْنَ وَالرِّجَالِ فِي الْمِهَنِ. That they, in their kind of caliber, he says that they equally participate with men. Like, they've got the same caliber if you allow them to develop in his day and age. And this is about 900 years ago. So he mentions, look, وَأَمَّا مُشَارَكَتُهُنَّ فِي فَنِّ الْحَرْبِ فَإِنَّ هَذَا واضح in the أهل البرار. He says, look, if you want to see warrior women, he says, just look at the the kind of women that live in the Sahara and places like this, that they are fighters. And he says, وَهُنَّ عَلَى جَانِبٍ كَبِيرٍ مِنَ الْفِطْنَةِ وَالْعَقْلِ. And he says, and they are gifted with huge, like women in general, not the warrior women. He's just saying, gifted with, huge intelligence and intellect. And he's going on saying this because he says that, look, بَيْنَمَا نَجِدُ شَرَائِعَ أُخْرَى عَلَى خِلَافٍ. Oh, this is a point about he's refuting Plato, saying that in his Republic some women are like, there are no relationships, whatever. But he says this, look, وَفِي مُدَنِنَا الْقَائِمَةِ. He says, in our cities today, فَإِنَّ قَابِلِيَةَ النِّسَاء لَيْسَتْ وَاضِحَةً. He says we can't see the talent and the capacity, like what the capabilities of women. He says لأن النساء غالبا ما يؤخذن he says إلا للإنجاب, that it's only for giving birth. Like, this seems to be the only function. فإنهن يوضعن في خدمة أزواجهن, and they're just told to serve their husbands. وما عليهن إلا الإنجاب, and they just have to give birth. والرضاعة, and nurse their children, feed them. والعناية بالولد, take care of children. And he says, وإن كان هذا الأمر, he's not kind of belittling that act, but he's saying يعطل أفعالهن الأخرى. He says, but this prevents them from showing their talents in other areas. وكونهن عالة على الرجال في هذه المدن جعلها فقيرة. Look at this. This is 900 years ago almost. He says the fact that we've made women become dependent on men to provide livelihood, he says we have impoverished our cities. We've rendered them poor cities because in his day and age, 2/3 of the population were women. They're not working, they're not contributing, they're not adding to the society. And he says they're just, so all we have are just poor cities. And I think that's like, it's wow, I mean, seriously, coming from, he mentions quite a few things. I thought I'd share that. It was definitely very interesting. And he was a legend and somebody I'm generally very inspired by. There are some books that have been written about him. There's somebody, I've forgotten the name. They've written, it's called Ibn Rushd Katib Sultan or something. But it's a dramatized story in Arabic about the life of Ibn Rushd. But cool, that's do read up on that if you have more interest in him. But cool, a legend of the Maliki madhab, people. Ibn Rushd Abu Layth al-Qurtubi. All right, people, let's move on. We're getting a bit late. How does Ibn Rushd and Ibn Ashur compare to Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim? Yeah, you see, all of these people, to be fair, that you've mentioned are critical minded. The difference is that Ibn Rushd is incredibly philosophical, much more philosophical than all the rest there. Ibn Rushd is more inclined towards reason than the others. The others are, all of these are inclined to some reason, but if I was to put them in order, then it would go Ibn Rushd, Ibn Ashur, Ibn al-Qayyim, and then Ibn Taymiyyah. That's how I would place them in favoring reason. But they are all critical minded. It's just what kind of pulls their fancy in that angle. Cool. And Ibn Taymiyyah, yeah, he's not really somebody that's philosophical or anything like that. And the problems with, just to briefly add, with Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim, but more so Ibn Taymiyyah, is, you see, although he did a lot of good and he did speak about welfare and he was critical and he challenged a lot of things, and that's cool, that's great if he just stopped there. When you're on a roll and you're like, I think I should just stop here. You're like, nah, yeah, when I'm doing this good. So, he decided to just keep going and keep swinging. And you see, the problem is he had a strong side of hate to him, almost like almost as though he had multiple personality disorders, schizophrenia, or bipolar. This guy he was like two. He has this side that, like, when he hates, he just he like hates at everyone, just like, and kafir, 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 kafir. And so it's weird, his person, whereas the personality of Ibn Rushd is static. Somebody loves philosophy, he's always inclined that way. He's not like, he was never this kind of like he doesn't snap. Ibn Ashur, pretty much the same. Somebody just, he's traditional, but he's in line of welfare, rules for it wherever he can, and he's just static. He doesn't kind of snap. Ibn Taymiyyah snaps, and that's the problem. We don't know, what do you do with that? When you've got you've got this person just kafir, 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 trigger happy. So yeah, that detracts. Cool. People, let me take a quick, somebody said my first time here. Don't worry, trigger. बहुत कुछ life में first time होता है. There's a lot we experience first time. Don't worry. Someone help trigger with a direct channel. In opening up a direct channel to how to write questions. So somebody said Danforth in Toronto is Bangladesh. Okay, I don't know that, but cool. Awesome. Right, so some quick questions, and we've got to move on to our in fact, I should have it. Do I have it open here? Mis Patreoncitos. All right, so yep, you are here. No, you're not. Yep, you are. Right, there were some interesting questions shared on Patreon today, so I'll bring some up. I can just bring it up here. People are like, yeah, what's Mufti about to yeah, the problem is you don't know what tabs I've got open here. Like, people are like, can I borrow your phone? You're like, kaheko. Why phone? Why? What this one? Let's go to posts. Right, so let's take a look at some of these questions. Mi gente, you guys, you're doing it, people. You're doing it. This Mis Patreoncitos, right? Gio, right? So that's my patrons on Patreon, right? But there's some very interesting questions. So I thought, and a lot of you have asked similar ones. Is that my private jet in lockdown? Salam Mufti, quick one. If I have, for example, savings and I pay zakat on them, but then by next year they have stayed the same, do I pay zakat on them again? Or only the increase? Technically, they would say you pay zakat again. If, like, each year kind of counts fresh. That's that. Can't be, I don't know what that one is. I was recently asked, why does it matter if I believe in a God or not? Whilst answering with using purpose of life as my main argument, I left it alone without engaging it too much. Definitely made me think on how one can approach this subject, who is different when it comes to having a belief in God. See, to me, the connection really, and I feel the comeback to faith, the modern portal and gateway to God is through consciousness. I honestly do believe that this is what will revive that interest again, and it already has in many circles. And obviously, people are afraid of it as well because God brings so much baggage, and this is the problem. They don't want that church or the mosque back into the discourse. But yeah, but I feel that really, if you follow consciousness, it will only lead you to God. Allah. Hi, I'm someone. Don't mention my name. Good thing I read that. I'm a gold mine for odd questions. You do. I fell in love with Yusuf's story, but after a few days, I decided to tell people how amazing he is. Convo lasted 15 seconds. All I had to say, I was, I like him a lot to trigger someone. I think the smile I had there was haram or something. How do you... what am I reading? I don't know whether I'm... You see now, this is where you doubt yourself. You think, is it my dirty mind? What am I reading here? I don't know. It's just my mind is too polluted. It's all you guys, you haramis polluted my mind. So when I got in turn were hadiths about how the Prophet himself said he had a better story than Yusuf, and he came as a prophet, as opposed to previous prophets. You see, each prophet has a unique story. It doesn't mean that, obviously, we as Muslims, the central figure is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but it doesn't mean that we somehow, you can't mention anything good in a way. The Prophet said, La tafaddiluni ala Yunus ibn Matta. Don't say I'm better than Jonah, the Prophet Yunus. But obviously we understand the Prophet to be in that sense because of his mission and everything and who he was for the whole of humanity as opposed to isolate tribes. He was the greatest prophet. But it doesn't mean that, let's say, if a particular prophet was incredibly strong, let's just say, that it means now, does it have to mean the prophet was also stronger? It's not a competition. So if you say Yusuf alayhi salam was incredibly, the most, he's so handsome. Now, so we don't need to think, oh my God, before we get insecure, let's say, but the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was more handsome than... the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we believe, was incredibly handsome, but I'm not saying that we have to react in an insecure way by saying that. I feel that's just insecurity. Salam, Mufti, Muslima, convert, you're doing it. I was wondering if you could talk about the man who was eating with his left hand and the Prophet told him to eat with his right hand. I'm left-handed. I'm a left-handed convert, and people are always telling me it should be easy to switch. It drives me nuts because I use my right hand for foods you can eat with your hand, and I use my left for my utensils. It's hard to handle a utensil with your non-dominant hand. Meanwhile, I watch all these people using utensils in their right hand and eating bread with their left. That's the emoji. Can you please enlighten me? It's a very good hadith, a very good question about a hadith. You see, this is a cultural issue. It's to do with the adab of eating, etiquette. It's not about halal, haram, okay? The Prophet addressed, and first of all, this hadith mainly, the main hadith, like the one in Bukhari and Muslim, is Umar ibn Abi Salmah, which was the kind of like fostered son of the Prophet. Because I say fostered son because the Prophet, his mother was Salmah, who the Prophet marries. So he's a young boy and he would be there in that house with Salmah. So hence the Prophet says in the other variant of the hadith, in the fuller variant. So there's a hadith that reads Sammillah. It reads Kul bi yaminik wa kul mimma yalik. Sammillah wa kul bi yaminik wa kul mimma yalik. That say Bismillah and eat with your right hand and eat with that which is in front of you. Now the more complete narration is that one I think they just say kul bi yaminik wa kul mimma yalik. Eat with your right hand and eat that's in Bukhari and Muslim. Complete version is the Prophet says Ya ghulam. He says boy, like I suppose today boy sounds rude, but Ya ghulam isn't rude in Arabic. It's like saying, little boy. He tells him that, he says, Sammillah, say Bismillah, eat with your right hand, and eat with the food that is in front of you in the tray. Because what they would do is they would eat from a kind of a large kind of tray, which they would just put the food on. Now, it was deemed not only rude, but it was poor etiquette to just kind of like start, like you're sitting there and I'm eating in front of your part and I'm eating, like you've got food there, it's the same food, eat in front. And here really the Prophet was just teaching as a kind of, as a father figure to this child, teaching him basic table manners of the day and age. And the Prophet said, look, say Bismillah. Like the Prophet tells him don't, because he was just diving in and he was a young boy, a little boy. So the Prophet says, look, don't do that. Say Bismillah, eat with your right hand, as in don't go like this and with all this stuff. Just eat nicely and eat from the part that's in front of you and work your way in. So this is etiquette. Yes, it is still deemed Muslim etiquette to eat with the right hand. If it's not possible for you, or if it's inconveniencing and difficult to do, then I feel fine. You can eat with the left hand. It's not a haram kind of issue. It's nothing like that. If you can, then because it's deemed Islamic etiquette, see what it is that it's not a problem, but it's just if you, it's either you can educate the whole world or you can just like, oh, what the hell, I'll just pick it up with I'm left-handed as well, by the way. It's my left hand, right? So I am left-handed, but I, as a child, because my parents said to me, you have to eat with your right hand. So I've always eaten with my right hand. That said, I'm now, as I grew older, I became ambidextrous. I learned how to write with both hands. And that kind of confused me with my left and right. So because when I think left, I always think of the hand I write with. This is probably telling of some mental disorder I've got. So I always think, left. But since I can write with both hands, it kind of confused me. I think, which one is it? Yeah, so this is the confusion, the problems, the challenges of being a left-handed person. But yeah, if you can eat with your right hand, fine. It's no problem. But if you're on your own eating, or if you want to, you can eat with your left hand. It's not, this isn't a haram issue. In Arab etiquette, that's how it was deemed. This was deemed good etiquette, that they deemed the right hand. And obviously there were hygiene issues involved. You have to remember that, look, people didn't always have water and they did go to the toilet, and there were certain things that it was a hot climate, and you have to take everything into consideration, look at the whole thing. And they had certain etiquette. It's not that they didn't wash their hands whenever they could. They did. A person would do wudhu 5 times a day, but still, as an extra hygiene, that they used a particular hand for always eating. There's nothing wrong with that, and I'm fine with it. I support eating with the right hand, but I'm just saying, if you can't, fine, eat with the left hand. It's not haram. Okay, cool. I hope that helps. Quick. Recent talk of Neuralinks and brain chips being a thing. Will religion play a role in this? Yeah, I mean, it will require ulama to start asking, having those conversations. Ulama ain't prepared to have any conversations. What is your understanding of Moses being instructed to strike the sea with his staff and for it to part, save the children of Israel? The general description is that the sea didn't just part, it took a long while. But this was a kind of, I suppose, in some ways it's a ritual, in some ways it's kind of showing them that, look, have hope in me, this is the way. It's going to be, because the story is that the children of Israel said to Moses, where have you brought us? This is a dead end. Sea in front of us and Pharaoh and his chariots behind us. Right? So here, this striking the sea to kind of show that actually the way will be through here. And like I mentioned in Colin Humphreys and other people in their research show at the Gulf of Aqaba, how other people have also documented the seas to part. But it is a gradual process that may take a few hours, as actually are the narrations that it took a whole night, and it was in the morning that the sea had parted. Cool. All right, we've done that, people. Let's move on. Let's move on to something a bit more.
Let me add a little bit of spice.
Spice, people. Let's add a little bit of spice, huh? This one. Our beloved. So, peoples, our beloved. This which Shadi Mubarak al-Masriji. Shadi, because Shadi, the word Shadi can also mean monkey in. So I don't know whether it's because of that reason Sheikh Shadi decides to do more monkey business. But I have a video on the incompetence of this man. God knows how he achieved that PhD, which I did say, by the way, I do believe that PhD thing is a partial scam as well. But challo, another day. That doesn't concern me. You see, your personal scams, challo yaar. Live it, man, live it. Live the life, brother. Live it, man. So that is your personal thing. I've got no issues with however you want to do 1 to ka 4, 4 to ka 1. But when you start preaching the religion, rather, this one, big problem, this one, big problem. So what we've got now is, those of you that are familiar, Sheikh Shadi made an Instagram post where he decided to speak about Ibn Ashur, the Maliki legend, and the controversial topic of the second coming of Jesus Christ. So what say this one? Huh? What say? So there you can see, people, Dr. Shadi al-Masri, Allah, Shadi Mubarak, aaj mere yaar ki shadi hai. He says, now you could, the opinion of Sheikh al-Islam, he is Sheikh al-Islam, Ibn Ashur on the second coming. Now look at the misquoting. He mentions 2 key points here. One, and what one must believe in accordance to the text of the Quran is that Isa alayhi salam was neither killed nor crucified. Okay. But Allah has raised him to himself and saved. Now look how he's portraying it. He's portraying, first of all, as though Allah has raised him miraculously alive. This is how he's portraying. And remember, this is his quoting. He's quoting this. So he says, from those, saved him from those who are pursuing him. And anything else is a matter of doubt. Anything else is doubtful. Abed jao yaar, it's doubtful, this one. Second point. Shadi, strike twice. They say lightning never strikes twice, but Shadi al-Mubarak strikes twice. So Shadi al-Mubarak says, he says, second part, he quotes again Ibn Ashur. A group of the companions of the Messenger of Allah narrate a hadith about the second coming of Isa. So a group of companions narrated, Acha? Huh? Acha? Phir? Then? Thumma? And there is nothing in the Quran that goes against the second coming of Isa in the last days. Oof. Hi. Oof. Hi. Oh. Zalim. So obviously, when something like that is going to happen, you're going to get me. I have to kind of do my little spice to that. So I made a comment, as you can see here, on his post. So I said, look, I hope you read it properly. The clock is ticking for Monday night. Tick tock, tick tock. Oh, lo and behold, people, I thought, insan, the actual ways insan, خطاء or كل بني آدم خطاء والإنسان يخطئ ويصيب. But I like the way a particular person says it. He says it almost in that pidgin. إنسان خطأ ممكن. إنسان خطأ ممكن. So I thought, since I've also got this book. Oh, تحرير والتنوير ابن عاشور. Oof. So I thought, what is So the first quote I find, but I'm not gonna leave you guys out of it. There it is, my beloveds. Right, so he writes here, وَالَّذِي يَجِبُ اعْتِقَادُهُ بِالنَّصِّ الْقُرْآنِ. He says, this is what is mandatory to believe in light of the Quran. That Jesus was not killed and was not crucified. And then he says, وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ رَفَعَهُ إِلَيْهِ. And Allah raises him. وَنَجَّاهُ مِنْ طَالِبِيهِ. And he saves him from the people who are trying to kill him. As to what is other than that, meaning how does he go up? Was it an actual death? Does he die later on? Does he go up alive? Does he say, how does this happen? He says, فَالْأَمْرْ فِيهِ مُحْتَمَلٌ. Not. Shadi says everything else is a matter of doubt. No. He says everything else. He says, he doesn't say everything else. He says the other matters of how this happened. He says these matters are subject to ihtimal, subject to interpretation. Okay? And then he goes on to say, and I've discussed this. I discussed it previously. I discussed it in the verse of the Quran in Surah Al Imran. Acha. Let's go to Surah Al Imran, What is this one? Because there's a second point. Remember, there's nothing in the Quran that goes against this. But there's nothing, as he said, there's nothing in the Quran that goes against that. So let's see, man. Let's see. So this, you nutty nutties. All right. So this is the verse that you can see is now to do the famous verse to do with Inni mutawaffika. I am giving you death. What does Ibn Ashur say? Ooh, what is this one? He says, as you can see there, ظاهر معناه إني مميتك. The apparent reading of the Quran is, I'm giving you death. He says, and then he goes on, لأن أصل, and he justifies why, because that's what death actually means. And he goes on to say that ويطلق التوفي على النوم مجازا. So he says that is just a majazi. People could say sleep is like the sister of death. He says, yes, but that's a metaphor. And he goes on to say here, let's just check if that is in the next one. Have I got the clip up there? Right, so anyway, here, I've got it right here. He is saying, if I just, un momento, if I just come back to here, clearly he's saying, he goes on to say, this is page 108, that this shows that أنه قد توفى, that he has توفي الوفاة المعروفة, that the known death, this is the death it's talking about. And he says why? Because if you read in Surah Ma'idah, it's even clearer, because in Surah Ma'idah, Jesus is speaking that he had already been dead. So he says, وَحَمْلُهَا عَلَى النَّوْمِ بِالنِّسْبَةِ لِعِيسَى لَا مَعْنَى لَهُ. And to say that Jesus had just gone to sleep and was raised, لَا مَعْنَى لَهُ. There is no meaning to this. It doesn't even make sense. So he goes on. Now this, you can see here, let me just bring it up. He mentions, so some people did this ta'wil, they did an interpretation to say it meant like this and it meant like that. How did it happen? How was he raised? And what are these interpretations? So he says, was sakata, and you can see here, it's quoted. He says, innaha wafatu maut. It is the wafat of death that Jesus has. وَهُوَ ظَاهِرُ قَوْلُ مَالِكِ فِي الْجَامِعِ الْعُتُبِيَّةِ. And this is the apparent reading of Malik in the Utubiyya. And prior to that sentence, he says, you can see it here. Just trying to see if it's in this one as well. But here, he does mention that Malik, how was Jesus killed? He says, Abbas wa Malik, and Ibn Abbas wa Malik, that they sakatu, that they were quiet. Sakata Ibn Abbas wa Malik an ta'yini kayfiyat dhalik. We don't know how, they just remained silent. They did not describe how this could have happened. And he says, وَلَقَدْ وُفِّقَا وَسُدِّدَا. And he says, and that was that they were successful in that approach, that was the approach of success. And you can see here, he quotes Imam Malik's quote that of Jesus having an actual death. So this is, this is in, all right, that was here as well. Let me show that to you. This is here, Imam Malik, and where I've put the red line, that they stayed silent about how he died, and that was the. And if you move on, this is Ibn Ashur still speaking, real death, once again quoting, ala haqiqatihi. See, inni mutawaffika ala haqiqati. I'm giving you death upon its literal. This is Ibn Ashur quoting it. I've got it right there on the screen so you can read it. And he says that, look, وَهُوَ ظَاهِرٌ, he says, وَإِن تَأَوَّلَ الْأَخْبَارَ الَّتِي يُفِيدُ ظَاهِرُهَا أَنَّهُ حَيٌّ. And he says, if you have some text saying Jesus is alive, it's better to interpret those to mean ala hayati karama, a kind of life of honoring, like the way we say martyrs are alive. This is like a kind of it's an honorific speak, okay, in saying that, we don't call them dead, we call them that they are living, with God. That's how we say it. So he mentions that. Now, peoples. The interesting point, the most important point. So you say, well, okay, ठीक है, अबे ठीक है यार, ठीक है. But he didn't, our beloved, didn't he show us that Ibn Ashur says there is no clash in the Quran? No clash. No clash in the Quran with, against the second coming of Jesus. Isn't this what he said? Isn't it what he said, people? So he says that this is what Ibn Ashur, I'm not saying this, Ibn Ashur is saying this, the Maliki Don, that Mufti Abu Layth quotes, the Maliki Don. Here you're going to see, not only is he misquoting, how poor his Arabic is. Check this out, people. Check it out, man. Check it out. This one. Right, so this one, mi gente, right? Where this one, man? Where this one? Oh, there it is. Yep. So, he mentions here. Let me just switch that off. Right, so this is, check this out. This is what Ibn Ashur is actually saying. And you can read it in his tafsir. I mean, it's right here. This is, I've brought it on the screen for you in case you say, Yar, Mufti, this one, not trust Mufti. He says, right, وَجَمْعُ, right, and just to be clear, this is what Shadi says. He says, a group of the companions of the messengers of Allah narrate the ahadith about the second coming of Isa, and there is nothing in the Quran that goes against the second coming. Check his translation. Now, what is Ibn Ashur actually saying? He's saying, there are ahadith which are mentioned, and he's speaking about a problem in one of the hadith. And he says, وَلَمْ يَرْوِهِ غَيْرُهُ مِمَّنْ رَوَى حَدِيثَ النُّزُولِ عِيسَى, whatever. And they are a group of companions. And there was a full stop here. He's speaking about, basically what Ibn Ashur is saying is one interpretation could be of the second coming. Just a brief jumla mu'tarida. He's saying that one interpretation could be that he's died, but on the day of judgment, he's risen. He's kind of resurrected initially. And this means, I don't take that interpretation, but I'm just saying Ibn Ashur is not saying that is it, but he's saying this could also be one. But then there's a hadith saying that when Jesus comes back, he's going to live for 40 years. So here he's showing that hadith, he's going to live for 40 years, whatever. This thing is not transmitted by other companions, and many other companions transmit the same hadith. وَهُمْ جَمَعٌ مِنَ الصَّحَابَةِ. Then look, وَالرِّوَايَاتُ مُخْتَلِفَةٌ. And the riwayat, the ahadith, are all in disagreement. They disagree with each other. وَغَيْرُ صَرِيحَةٌ. And they are unclear in what they're talking about. وَلَمْ يَتَعَرَّض. Sorry, did I say يُعَارِض? لا. لَمْ يَتَعَرَّض. Al-Quran, the Quran did not deal with, it did not even address fi addi mazayahu, when counting the benefits of Jesus, the favors of God upon Jesus, when they're enumerated in Surah Ma'idah and in these surahs, the Quran did not address, it did not deal with, it did not encounter the second coming amongst those blessings. Fi annahu yanzilu akhiru zaman. You still don't. Yata'arrad, people, yata'arrad. What does yata'arrad mean? Now you might say, well, Mufti, this one not nice, my friend. So look, here's a definition of yata'arrad. For some people, they might go, well, Mufti, it needs to be in English, man. This one in English. Okay, so let me give I've got there you go. That's ta'arrada, that's in Arabic, it shows, but you might say, well, no problem, man, no problem. Abhi Google, let's start with Google. Google Translate for our Google Mashayikh. As Shadi says, you can just Google things, yaar. So even Google is showing that ta'arrada means to be exposed to encounter, to deal with something. You might say, well, Mufti, I'm not trusting Google, no problem. Here's another dictionary for you to check. Right now, this is yata'arrad, to be exposed to. The Quran does not encounter this argument. When it's counting out the blessings of Jesus, why didn't God also say, and we sent you back? He's actually kind of dissing the second coming. The verb that shadi is so excited about his shadi in his monkey business, he confused it with the verb which comes from this root called arada. And here is that verb, arada. Now, arada means to oppose. So he is assuming that if you go back to it, when he's saying that oppose, he thinks it says yu'arid. It doesn't. I mean, of course it doesn't. He reads yata'arrad, but he assumes the meaning of yata'arrad is yu'arid. But it doesn't mean that. You know, okay, the verbs are similar kind of verbs. It's like saying, you know, the word, I don't know, the member and remember, and, you know, just because they've got these similar, they have similar roots and things to them, it doesn't mean they're the same. So he reads yata'arrad, lam yata'arrad lahu. The Quran doesn't even deal with this. He's assuming that means yu'arid. It doesn't oppose it. So you can see right there, the second Quran, it doesn't go against it. So this complete facade that you can see here. This one, we cut you out, you know, this one, you tried it, you try it. I like it. But brother, no brother, this one, no monkey business. So that was a proper, look, so there's only two answers here. He either is incompetent, doesn't understand Arabic. Abi Salmah, the guy is clearly saying, lam yata'arrad, lam yu'ar, he didn't oppose. Did your chacha come and give the verb a new meaning? So either his Arabic is pathetic and incompetent, because two things he's misleading, or you're going to say, no, he knew this and he intentionally is misleading people. Either ways, people. Either ways, man. Either ways, man. This one. This one no good, you know. This one not nice, man. I don't like it. No me gusta. Your monkey business. Wah. Sada sahagan ro. Sada. So that's our beloved. So you can see the blags. See, when people blag, this is the problem. You see, but you know, me, people just look at me and say, what does this mufti know? What does this one know? True. Need a direct connection. Somebody can give a direct channel to, we spoke of Al-Andalus, right? I got to wrap this up, people. It's gone on so long, but I'll tell you what, I'll share a proverb with you. Actually, I had a clip. Check this out. There was this, somebody sent me this clip of a niqabi lady giving wa'az. And it's about the hot topic, the sacks, the sacks. But she begins by giving a metaphor about driving a car, but then it's very clear that's not what she's talking about. I thought, well, chalo, what are our thoughts? There should be a reaction to that. So that was
बात करेंगे वो ये कि शरीयत के लिहाज से किस तरीके से गाड़ी चलाना जायज है या नहीं, ये देखेंगे कि खड़े होकर और बैठकर या लेटकर इन तमाम तरीकों में से किसी तरीके को गलत नहीं कहा गया। एक तरीका ये भी है कि गोद में उठाकर करें, अगर घरवाली का वजन कम है तो गोद में उठाकर भी करें, ताकि जिंदगी का लुत्फ मजे ले लेकर हासिल करें। इंसान को हर तरीके से करना चाहिए ताकि मोहब्बत बढ़े। बस ख्याल रहे पीछे के रास्ते ना जाएं, बल्कि पीछे से आगे वाले रास्ते में सफर करें। हर रोज नए नए तरीके से करने से दिल में इस चीज की हसरत बढ़ जाती है कि आज हम ऐसे करेंगे, कल वैसे करेंगे। जिंदगी बोर नहीं होती। इंसान एक जगह करते करते बोर हो जाता है। कभी दूसरे कमरे में, कभी जमीन पर, तो कभी पलंग पर करना चाहिए। कभी ऐसा भी होना चाहिए कि नहाते हुए मस्ती करें, एक दूसरे को साबुन की झाग से भर दें, उसके बाद वहीं शुरू हो जाएं। अगर घर में स्विमिंग पूल है और रात के वक्त वहाँ कोई मौजूद ना हो तो वहाँ भी जश्न वाला माहौल बना सकते। बस जो करें शरीयत के दायरे में रहकर कर सकते हैं।
I mean, there's nothing wrong in what the lady's saying. I don't know why, but I just found this. यार मस्ती करें यार, जिंदगी का लुत्फ लें यार, हाँ मजा है जिंदगी में। नए नए तरीके से करो यार, नए नए। Open the direct channel, you know the direct. Somebody can open a direct channel with Shadi al-Masri for communication. You know, this one, rather. So I was going to say, this also reminds me, we were speaking earlier on about Al-Andalus, Muslim Spain. So there was this proverb book, I read it a while back, called the Amthal, the Proverbs of people of, back then in Spain, they had different proverbs. So in Arabic, they're kind of Arabic. So in one of them, the person is talking about the sacks, the sacks. But he says that he's responding, and this became a proverb then. So that's why it's in the thing. The person says, the way to the heart is through the through the back direct channel, through the direct channel, but through the rear channel. Parking at rear, that one. So it says in the thing, this is in the actual book, it's a quote. And the person says, the way to the beloved's heart is through there. You got to access the channel, man, but through the special. So the other person says, huh? He says, and how does that impact the heart? Like, how does this have a sway with the hearts? So he says, al-uruq muttasila. And this became the proverb. He says, the nerves are connected. So this one, as you were seeing here,
वो ये कि शरीयत के लिहाज से किस तरीके से गाड़ी चलाना
which way should you drive a car?
ये देखेंगे कि खड़े होकर और बैठकर या लेटकर, इन तमाम तरीकों में से किसी तरीके को गलत नहीं कहा गया। एक तरीका ये भी है कि गोद में उठाकर करें। अगर घरवाली का वजन कम है तो गोद में उठाकर भी करें, ताकि जिंदगी का लुत्फ मजे ले लेकर हासिल करें। इंसान को हर तरीके से करना चाहिए ताकि मोहब्बत बढ़े। बस ख्याल रहे पीछे के रास्ते ना जाएं, बल्कि पीछे से आगे वाले रास्ते।
उन्हें क्या लो जी गौरी आया
So people, that's if somebody can send the message to my beloved over there. Ay Shadi al-Masri, that al-uruq muttasila, the nerves are connected. Connected. Direct channel. So people, we're gonna have to wrap this up. It's been ever so awesome. Shukran for tuning in. I appreciate all your love and support. Mwah, Gio. If you want to reach out, as usual, Instagram. Yep, you like my Facebook as well, YouTube as well. Abey yaar, salo sharminda ho jata. This one. La haya fi din. If it wasn't for, I have modesty from saying subscribe to but it's the fact that this hadith said there's no modesty in Islam. Is wajah se besharam ho gaya hoon that, I've become besharam. So you haramis, make sure you've subscribed. Click the like button. The subscribe, the notification. Sorry. And yes, and obviously Miss Patreoncitos as well. Mwah, those of you on Patreon. Much love to you guys, as always. Rest of you guys as well, take very good care of yourselves. We'll speak soon. This week, there should be a Mindtrap. Do look out for that. I look forward to it. Take very good care of yourselves. Wassalamullahi alaikum. Mwah. Geo, people. Geo. Over and out, folks. Over and out. Assalamu alaikum.
The great, the genius, Danny Boy.
Danny Boy, I had to give my salam.
Boy.
People,
Mentally challenged.
That's a lot for